parašyti, kas
jie visi kas nori. Gal tu gali pasakyti?
Reikia gal pasirkalauti. Bet čia atneštų gal kvedžių papildą.
Ten man čia sužinoti, visi įveikas. Ir mes pradėsime po to.
Kas čia organizacijos padeda? Ne, su ūkiu visų. Bet gal kvedžių reikia paprašyti.
Pirmoji, antroji eilė.
Su kuo?
Oi, ne pirmoji, bet antroji, trečioji.
Čia pasidalinsim gal.
Kaip čia susijungia va tas jutinas?
Man nereiks.
Nereiks, tikrai nereiks.
Mes pakalbam ir atsisėdam visą. Jo, ir yra panelis šiandien sėda jau, kuris kalba toliau. Kai mes pakalbėsim, mes atsisėsime tenai. Mes galėtume susirasime.
Čia buvo remontuota jau.
Čia po truputį atnaujinom, bet langus dabar pakeitėm neseniai. Šilimo laikyti.
Čia gan įspūdinga.
Labadiena, gerbėmieji. Pradedame prezidento Valdo Adamkaus vardo konferenciją regioninės lyderystės atkūrimas. Techninė detalė dėl vertimo, ausines jūs galite įsigyti štai čia prie įėjimo durų. Simboliška tai, kad Europos tautų laisvei ir laisvės gynimo bendros strategijos paieškoms skirta konferencija vyksta Europos dienos stalinizmo ir nacizmo aukoms atminti išvakarėse. Beveik prieš 80 mečius įvykęs tironų suokalbis tebėra mums visiems aktualus šiandien, nes viena iš dviejų tironijų savitai tebėra gyva, jos įpėdiniai, imperinės tradicijos tęsėjai didžiuojasi stalinizmo nusikaltimais ir bando tęsti užkariavimų ir bauginimo politiką. Primenu, kad pirmoji mūsų konferencijos sesija skiriama regioninio bendradarbiavimo galimybėms aptarti. Na, o dabar tarti žodį konferencijos dalyviams kviečiu Vilniaus universiteto rektorių Artūrą Žukauską.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, on behalf of Vilnius University, I would like to welcome you all here. It is our honor to host this event, President Valdas Adamkus Conference, Restoring Regional Leadership. I believe it is very fitting that our university was chosen as a venue. Vilnius University, as the first and largest university in the region, always was and is to this day a place for different cultures, nations, and schools of thought. We always encouraged constructive dialogue and stood out as leaders in education. Our aim is to never stop growing. Just this year, we have improved our positions in international rankings. Our scientists published their works in prestigious scientific journals such as Nature and Science, and we were named the best university in Lithuania for 4 years in a row. For a long time, Vilnius University was the only higher education institution in Lithuania and has played a significant part in the cultural life, not only here, but in the neighboring countries as well. The approaching of the Black Ribbon Day, the European Day of Remembrance for victims of Stalinism and Nazism, reminds us once more, the members of the community of this great university, that were expelled, deported, and even killed. During days like these, we have to remember we need to understand our past and learn from our mistakes to build our future. I am happy to say that Vilnius University have put these words into action by launching a long-term project recovering memory in order to remember and pay respect to the members of the Vilnius University community who were expelled from the university because of the actions of totalitarian regimes and their local collaborators. We cannot allow ourselves to be controlled by our past mistakes. Only by accepting and learning from them, we will be able to restore our leadership and create our future. I welcome all of you to share your knowledge and experience, which could drive our country even further. Thank you all for participating and have a great conference.
Gerbėmieji, dabar girdėsite šio renginio iniciatoriaus, Seimo nario, buvusio Lietuvos ambasadoriaus Jungtinėse valstijose Žygimanto Pavilionio sveikinimo žodį.
Nuoširdžiai dėkoju visiems, kurie atsiliepė į prezidento Valdo Adamkaus kvietimą susitelkti vardan didesnės Lietuvos, vardan didesnio regiono, vardan didesnės transatlantinės šeimos mūsų regione. Nuoširdžiai dėkoju ir mūsų Alma Mater, kur prieš 25 metus organizavome pirmasias konferencijas dėl įsijungimo į vakarų šeimą, vėliau džiaugiamės pasiektą narystę ir organizavodavom aptarėm pirmasias regioninės lyderystės gaires, kurią šiandien susitinkame, kad aptarti tą lyderystę atgaivinti, sustiprinti bei perduoti ateities kartoms. Dėkoju užsienio svečiams, tikriems Lietuvos draugams iš Lenkijos, Švedijos, Amerikos, Vokietijos, be kurių paramos niekada nebūtume pakeitę savo regiono, nei uždegę laisvės vilties mūsų kaiminystėje. Sukvietėme jūs ne tik iš pagarbos mūsų širdžių prezidentui, surengėme šį susitikimą, norėdami įtvirtinti jo paveldą užsienio ir saugumo politikoje. Turime šios darbus tęsti ir stengtis regioną dar labiau pakeisti, įtvirtinti ir išplėsti. Šioje konferencijoje ieškosime geriausių transatlantinės lyderystės regione pavyzdžių. Vakar Lietuvos krantus pasiekusios pirmosios JAV suskystintos dujos yra vienas iš tokių pavyzdžių visam regionui. Žinau, kad šiandien kalbėsime įvairiomis temomis ir galbūt vieningų išvadų nepadarysime. Tačiau svarbiausia, mūsų pasiryžimas inicijuoti permainas, veikti kartu. Tikiuosi, kad tai ilgainiui įgaus vis naujas formas ir atneš rezultatų. Viena iš temų, kuri mus visus jungia, ypač artėjant Juodojo Kaspino dienai, sustabdyti Kremliaus agresiją regione. Iki šiol mes tik gynėmės atskirai, stichiškai, kas kaip mokėdamas, kas kaip galėdamas, per mažai kartu. Tikiuosi, kad šiandien konferencijoje mes sutarsime dėl efektyvesnių būdų, kaip sustabdyti Kremlių, kaip išvaryti Kremlių iš Lietuvos ir viso regiono. Iš mūsų energetikos sektoriaus, mūsų žiniasklaidos, mūsų politinės sistemos, mūsų rinkimų ir pagaliau iš mūsų širdžių ir smegenų. Tokį Rusijos išvarimą asmeniškai laikyčiau šios konferencijos esminių strateginių tikslų. Šios konferencijos tikslas ne tik ieškoti ir gryninti idėjas, ruošti pagrindus naujoms transatlantinėms iniciatyvams regione, bet ir įkvėpti naujus lyderius, paskatinti juos nebijoti, išdrįsti būti ištikimiems savo pašaukimui, sąžiningai ir iki galo vykdyti savo misiją. Džiaugiuosi, kad Adamkaus konferencija šiandien remia vieno žymiausio visos transatlantinės šeimos lyderio senatoriaus Makeino institutas, kurio pagrindinis tikslas visam pasaulyje ieškoti ir telkti bendram darbui naujus politinius ir moralinius lyderius – saugumo, ekonominių galimybių, laisvės ir žmogaus teisių srityje. Mūsų vizija neapsiriboja visiems svarbiausių regionų esančių į rytus nuo šio garbingo universiteto sienų. Mūsų misija yra į vieną gyvybingą bendruomenę sujungti gabiausius laisvės ir demokratijos protus Europoje ir už Atlanto. Į šią nesibaigiančią kovą įtraukti Amerikos ir pasaulio lietuvius, Amerikos, Kanados, pasaulio ukrainiečius, kubiečius, Lenkus, švedus, vokiečius ir kitus, kurie šias pastangas remia Europoje. Todėl šiandien su Kurtu Volkeriu ir jo anksčiau vadovaujamu Makeino institutu aptarsime galbūt galimybę įkurti prezidento Valdos Adamkaus ir senatoriaus Makeino vardo lyderystės akademiją šio regiono šalims. Kovojame vakar, kovojame šiandien, kovosime rytoj. Atnaujindami kovą atsinaujinsime patys. Todėl mūsų vizija visų pirma orientuota į ateitį ir jaunąją kartą, ypač į ją. Ši konferencija nebūtų įmanoma be jų indėlių ir energijos, be jų vizijų ir darbų, už ką savo jauniesiems kolegams norėčiau nuoširdžiai padėkoti. Jūs esate šios konferencijos siela ir pagrindinis tikslas. Ačiū Jums labai, geros konferencijos.
Gerbėmieji, dabar kviečiu klausytis prezidento Valdo Adamkaus pranešimo regioninės lyderystės atkūrimas.
Jūsų ekscelencijos, valstybių vadovai, diplomatai, gerbėmiai vyriausybių vadovai ir atstovai, konferencijos svečiai ir viešnios. Nuoširdžiai sveikinu visus atvykus į Vilnių, į mūsų senąjį universitetą, susitikti, padiskutuoti apie mūsų regionų, Europos ir pasaulio situaciją, apie šiandienos ir rytojaus iššūkius. Kadangi esame klasikinės kultūros ir mokslo židinyje, norėčiau savo kalbą pradėti primindamas gerai žinomą lotynišką sentenciją. Tempora mutantur et nos mutamur in illis. Tai laikas keičiasi ir mes keičiamės kartu. Laikai keičiasi. Prisimenu savo apsilankymus šiame universitete įvairiomis progomis. Prisimenu tų 15 ar kelių dešimtmečių senumo istoriją Lietuvos, Europos ir pasaulio. Turiu prisipažinti, daug kas tada atrodė viltingiau ir tos mūsų viltis turėjo realų pagrindą. Pasaulis rodėsi ramesnis, stabilesnis ir geriau suprantantis pamatinės savo gyvavimo sąlygas. Europa efektingai integravosi ir, kas maloniausia, šiame integracijos procese Lietuva užėmė deramą vietą. Nuo kandidatės į ES klubą iki realios narystės, o vėliau ir iki lyderystės savame regione. Mūsų didžioji kaiminė rytuose atrodė irgi eis europinės tradicijos. vertybinės politikos ir demokratijos kelių, o Lietuvos ir Lenkijos santykiai tiek centrinėje Europoje, tiek visame pasaulyje buvo iškeliami kaip istorinių kaimyninių taikaus ir apipusiai pagarbaus bendradarbiavimo etalonas. Šiandien matome kitokį vaizdą. Deja, nemeluotume sakydami absoliučiai atvirkščią vaizdą. Europa ieško savęs ir mėgina atsispirti fragmentacijos skilimo tendencijoms. Rusija vykdydami politiką skaldyk ir valdyk vakarų Europoje visame pasaulyje rengia kibernetinės atakas, pietinių kaimininių teritorijas atvirai grobia ir aneksuoja, remia autoritarinius režimus ir provokuoja konfliktus artimuose rytuose. O kas man asmeniškai skaudu ir apmaudu, Lietuvos ir Lenkijos santykiai iš pasitikėjimo ir pagarbos lygmens per keletą metų nedovanotinai nukrito į priekaištų, kaltinimų, nepasitikėjimų ir senų nuoskaudų eskalavimo lygmenį. Kas toliau? Kas mūsų visų laukia, jeigu nieko nedarysime, nesikalbėsime, nekelsime problemų ir patys savo melosime, kad viskas gerai? Pasaulis šiandien itin nedidelis, integralus ir todėl itin lengvai pažeidžiamas, o pasaulinis konfliktas itin lengvai gali kilti iš vietinės problemos, kad ir kur jis pasireikštų – Sirijoje, Šiaurės Korejoje ar mūsų kaiminystėje Europoje. Todėl turime kalbėtis, turime žvelgti į ateitį strategiškai ir vertybiškai. Manau, kad šis mūsų susitikimas strateginio dialogo pradžia. Esu tikingas visiems jums, atsiliepusiems į kvietimą, susitikti ir aptarti ateities viziją, kuri atnaujintų ir pratęstų pozityvaus laikotarpio sėkmę ilgiems dešimtmečiams į priekį, kuri telktų lyderius atveriant duris naujoms laisvų europiečių kartoms regione. Kai kalbu apie sėkmingą regiono ir visos Europos laikotarpį, matau ir svarbu Lietuvos vaidmenį šiuose procesuose. Lietuva kartu su Lenkija, su posovietinėmis valstybėmis kartu nuėjo nemažą kelią, pasiekė daug strateginių tikslų. Šiandien bandome išsaugoti savo pasiekimus, tačiau pripažinkime realybę. Vis rečiau ir vis stipriau dalyvaujame formuojant užsienio ir saugumo politikos darbotvarkės regione, prarandame iniciatyvą, lyderystę, o mūsų pavieniai taktiniai laimėjimai neatsveria strateginių praradimų iš vizijos regione bei Europoje stokos. Turime atvirai pripažinti, kad Vladimirui Putinui vis labiau pavyksta stabdyti laisvės žygį, pradėtą prezidento Reagano ir tęstą iki pat prezidento Bušo laikų. Putino kėslai apriboti JAV lyderystę ir sukurti vadinamai multipolarinį ir nestabilų pasaulį šiandien tampa nepageidaujama realybė. Dešimtmečius trunkančius neryžtingos derybos su Šiaurės Korėjos režimu leido pastarajam susikurti ne tik atominį ginklą, bet ir balistinių raketų sistemas, o Rusijai ir Kinijai patogiai manipuliuoti šioje situacijoje savo naudingą linkme. Neryžtingumas Sirijoje sukėlė didžiulę imigracijos problemą Europoje, kartu atverdama duris tiesioginiai Rusijos intervencijai bei JAV ir ES pažeminimui. Aiškiai matoma ir suvokiame, JAV lyderystė yra būtina sąlyga pasaulio saugumui ir demokratijai išsaugoti. Šiandien Jungtinių valstijų administracijos ryžtinga laikysena Šiaurės Korėjos, Sirijos, Venezuelos krizių atvejais Senato ir atstovų rūmų vieninga pozicija dėl sankcijų Rusijai yra svarbus naujosios lyderystės vilties ženklai. 21 amžiuje Rusijai užpuolus suverenės valstybės Gruziją ir Ukrainą, JAV ir ES nepadarė visko, ką galėjo, kad apsaugotų šias šalis nuo dalies jos teritorijų okupacijos ir aneksijos. Noriu labai atvirai akcentuoti, kad kova čia dar nepasibaigė. Ir jei nebus naujų Miuncheno suokalbių, jeigu transatlantinė bendruomenė laikysis principingai ir nepraras jėgos pozicijų, Rusija privalės atsitraukti. Likimas Europos, kuri kovoja už savo laisvę ir lyderystę, tiksliau už tai, kas iš jų liko, mums turi būti ypač svarbus. Keista stebėti, kad kai kurie ES šalių lyderiai perima Putino retoriką ar net gina jos interesus, bet negina Europos siekių ir vienybės. Neminėsiu 2006 metų nutrauktos družbos, bet Nord Stream pirmos bei antros išdavystės verti paminėjimo. Gresiantis Brexit neabejotinai atims iš Europos daug politinės gyvybės bei sugebėjimo strategiškai veikti. Nesinori priimti Brexit kaip įvykusio galutino ir neatšaukiamo fakto. Vis dėlto ES lyderiams pirmiausiai derėtų ieškoti išeities ir naujos vieningos vizijos, naujų sambūvių formų, o nesiekti nubausti Britaniją bet kokią kainą. Tokia kaip ir iki šiol business as usual, technokratijos užgrobta, su aiškiu demokratijos deficitu ES negalės egzistuoti. Tuo tarpu Lietuva, galiu pasakyti tik tiek, kaip dėja kartais nesugebėjome susitarti su savo natūraliais strateginiais partneriais bei kaimynais. Kažkas ne taip, jei prarandame draugus tiek vidurio Europos sostinėse, tiek Rygoje ir Taline, net Baltijos šalis mūsų neparėmė dėl gyvybinių energetinių klausimų. Rusija Baltarusų rankomis stato atominę bombą prie pat Vilniaus prieigų, o mes nesugebame įtikinti Europos šalių dėl mūsų susirūpinimo nei tartis su artimiausiais kaimynais. Nesu naivus ir neturiu vilčių, kaip ir visi jūs, suprantu, kad su Kremliuje artimiausių metų tikrai nesusidraugausime. Esu įsitikinęs, kad artėjant rinkimams Lietuvoje išgirsime ne vieną siūlymą būti labiau pragmatiškiams, žiūrėti daugiau interesų, žodžių, grįžti prie realpolitik santykiuose su Rusija. Tačiau Lietuva, žvelgdama iš savo istorijos ir iš savo dabarties, labai gerai žino, kad realpolitik savoka dažniausiai yra ne iš politologijos, o iš propagandos žodyno. Jie dažniausiai dangstomi gėdingi, nešvarūs ir neretai net ir nusikalstami sprendimai. Lietuvos santykių su Rusija politika šiandien tai visų pirma Gruzijos ir Ukrainos laisvė bei teritorinis vientisumas, kaip aukščiausias Lietuvos saugumo interesas ir kaip išbandymas kiekvieno europiečio sąmonei ir sąžiniai. Šiandien ukrainiečiai kovoja ir žūsta už Europą, už jos istoriją, dabartį ir ateitį. Taip pat ir už mūsų laisvę. Todėl prekiauti savo vertybėmis už jų nugaros būtų didžiausia ir amoraliausia išdavystė. Pribrenda būtinų sprendimų laikas, europinių vertybių lyderystės laikas. Lietuva turime vėl aktyviai dalyvauti priimdami visus svarbiausius mūsų transatlantiniai šeimai, Europai, regionai sprendimus, o o ne nusišalinti ar atsiriboti nuo jų. Svarbiausias mūsų tikslas yra sustiprinti Europą. Nuoširdžiai tikiu, kad kanclerė Merkel, kurios atstovas, ilgametis Vokietijos užsienio politikos architektas ponas Elmar Brok šiandien yra su mumis čia pat. Ir kartu tikrai manau, kad su Prancūzijos prezidentu pavyks jam ir bendrai pavyks šį tikslą pasiekti. Turime ne tik aktyviai dalyvauti, bet ir susitelkti, kuriant įvairius Europos saugumo stiprinimo projektus ir, žinoma, būti jei ne jų avangarde, tai branduolyje. Turime aktyviai dalyvauti ir Brexit dėrybose. Vienas svarbiausių mūsų šiandienos uždavinių – apriboti neigiamą Rusijos įtaką Lietuvai, regionui, Europos Sąjungai. Turime gausybę karinių, energetinių, kibernetinių, juridinių priemonių šiam tikslui pasiekti. Tačiau pirmiausiai tiek mūsų regione, tiek Vašingtone, tiek Briuselėje visi turime dėl šio tikslo sutarti. Kova su Rusijos propaganda iš esmės vyksta tik nacionaliniu lygmeniu. Iki šiol neturime stiprių regioninių projektų, kurie taptų realia alternatyva Kremliaus propagandai. Privalome užkardyti ir korupcinių Rusijos pinigų dalyvavimą mūsų politinėse kompanijose, bandymą daryti poveikį mūsų rinkimams ar kitokiams pasirinkimams, taip pat ir energetikos sektoriuje. Kartu galėtume tokį korupcinį poveikį tirti ir vėliau užkardyti ES lygmeniu. Būtina visomis įmanomomis priemonėmis užtikrinti reformų tęstinumą Ukrainoje, Gruzijoje, Moldavijoje. Kova už realias karinės pagalbos suteikimą Ukrainoje ar visos kitos Vašingtono, Briuselio ar čia dalyvaujančių šiaurės šalių atstovų priemonės šiam tikslui pasiekti yra labai svarbios. Galutinė mūsų veiklos stotelė turi būti šių šalių narystės NATO ir Europos Sąjungos, tačiau kartoju, šį tikslą pasieksime tik visi kartu, užtikrinę sėkmingą reformų tąsą ir apskritai reikėtų dar ir paminėti ir Baltarusiją. Ilgalaikė strategija ir jos nuoseklus įgyvendinimas siekiant šią šalį paversti europietišką ir demokratišką yra tikrai stiprus, daug kantraus darbo ir ilgalaikio pastangų reikalaujantis iššūkis, bet kartu gyvybiškai svarbus regiono saugumo ir gerovės užtikrinimo uždavinys. Privalome įgyvendinti inovatinius sprendimus suskystintų gamtinių dujų sektoriuje ir strateginėje energetikos srityje, galutinai įtvirtinti demokratiją. Tai yra laisvę rinktis tiekėją ir šaltinius, sugriaudant trečiųjų šalių monopolijų dominavimą. Ir tai kalbu apie Gazprom ir Rosatom tarptautinės imperijas. Vakar į Klaipėdą atgabenta pirmoji suskystintų dujų siunta iš Jungtinių Amerikos valstybių. Yra dar vienas reikšmingas žingsnis link šio tikslo. Turime ryžtingai baigti jungti mūsų dujų tinklus, sinkronizuoti elektros tinklus ir likviduoti milžiniškus elektros grėsmiai šaltinius, tokius kaip Astravo atominė elektrinė. Lietuvai būtina kelti ne tik Nord Stream 2, bet ir Astravos kėlimą klausimą Europos saugumo viršūnių taryboje, siekti sušaukti viso regiono politikos vadovų susitikimą, skirtą energetikai įvardijant naujas grėsmes. Tam, kad pavyktų šios tikslus pasiekti, regiono valstybių ir vyriausybių vadovai galėtų, o ir turėtų imtis naujų regioninės lyderystės iniciatyvų, aktyviai prisidėti prie mūsų bendro regiono kūrimo. Kibernetinio saugumo srityje taip pat privalome sujungti savo jėgas. Kol kas žengėme pirmosius žingsnius savo šalyse, tačiau ši grėsmė jau seniai nepaiso valstybinių sienų, todėl privalome kurti bendras pajėgas, naujus bendrus kaimininius junginius šioms grėsmėms įveikti. Ir pabaigai pasimokydami iš savo partnerių Jungtinėse valstybėse, Jungtinėje karalystėje, Vokietijoje, privalome sukurti stiprius partinės politinės lyderystės institutus. Šiandien partneriai Mekeino institutas, Tarptautinis Respublikonų institutas yra neprilygstami šioje srityje, o mes tokių sisteminių politinės, vertybinės lyderystės mokyklų neturime. Privalome jas įsteigti arba kartu su savo partneriais vakaruose sustiprinti esamus užsienio politikos analizės centrus. Galbūt apjungiant į vieną bendrą regiono strateginių priešakinių tyrimų mokyklą, kuri nuolat kurtų, vystytų regiono viziją bei užimtus šios vizijos monitoringu. Galbūt Kurto Volkerio anksčiau vadovautas Mekeino institutas galėtų ištobulinti idėją šios bendros priešakinės akademinės institucijos, kuri turėtų filialus Vilniuje, Varšuvoje ir Kijeve. Tai tik keletas minčių, keletas idėjų. Esu tikras, kad konferencijoje jų išgirsime daugiau. O labiausiai norėčiau, kad idėjos virstų darbais, kad vis daugiau politikų regione, Europoje, Jungtinėse Amerikos valstybėse imtų realios atsakomybės, neatidėliotų sprendimų, kurios reikia daryti šiandien, kad mūsų pasaulis taptų saugesnis. Kalbant simbolių kalba, šiandien visi mes, pasaulio gyventojai, plaukiame vienoje valtyje. Ir vis didesnė grėsmė bet kokiai regioniniai žiežirbai įsipliekti į gaisrą ne tik girdiniam regione, bet ir didžiulėje pasaulio dalyje. Todėl kiekvienas turi daryti tai, ką gali savo tautos ir šalies, savo Europos, savo pasaulio saugumui. Nes pasaulio, Europos ir regiono saugumas ir ateitis prasideda čia ir dabar, nuo kiekvieno iš mūsų žodžių ir darbų. Norėčiau, kad tokia konferencija Vilniuje taptų tradicinė, kad nuolatos iš kiekvienos atstovaujamas šalies vidaus ir iš paukščio skrydžių būtų galima įvertinti naujus iššūkius mūsų transatlantiniam pajėgumui ir solidarumui Lietuvos, Europos ir pasaulio ateičiai. Norėčiau padėkoti visiems padėjusiems surengti šią konferenciją. Vilniaus universitetui, Vilniaus klubui, Rytų Europos studijų centrų, Tarptautiniam Respublikonų institutui, Mekeino institutui, Užsienio reikalų ministerijai bei asmeniškai daug darbo įdėjusiam Žygimantui ponui Pavilioniui. Ačiū Jums visiems. Tikiuosi, kad šis mūsų bendras žingsnis, žengtas Vilniuje, taps svarbaus kelio Europoje ir pasaulyje dalimi. Ir dėkoju visiems dalyviams, svečiams, geros valios politikams, valstybėms ir vyriausybėms, kurios vieną kitą palaikydamos ir padrasindamos kartu eina istorinių ir žmogiškųjų vertybių kryptimi. Kiek tik galėsiu, eisiu kartu su jomis. Ačiū labai.
Gerbėmieji, pradedame rytinę sesiją ir kviečiu jos pranešėjus prie stalo. Please take your seats.
Thank you. Then I find a place.
There's the biggest chair.
Mes dėja turime tik 45 minutės, tiek laiko, kai kurie užduoda vieną klausimą, o mes turime sutalpinti 5 pranešimus. Todėl prašysiu pranešėjų orientuotis į 8 minutės, o kalbėti kaip jums patogiau. Galima iš vietos, galima iš tribūnos. Vienas arba 2 klausimai pranešėjams iškart sesijai pasibaigus galėtų būti tik tuo atveju, jei liktų laiko. Labai tikiuosi supratimo ir nesupykite, jei laiko klausimams neliks. Prašau kalbėti Lietuvos užsienio reikalų ministrą Liną Linkevičių.
Lietuviškai, taip? Sveiki visi, labai smagu matyti daug pažįstamų veidų. Ypač norėčiau kreiptis prezidentą Valdą Adamkų, prezidentą Basesku, prezidentą Juščenką. Iš tikrųjų smagu, kad lieka ta pati lyderystė, lieka aktyvumas. Ir labai tikiuosi, kad po šio susitikimo mums visiems bus daugiau minčių. Ką daryti šiame neramiame pasaulyje? Manyčiau, kad gyvename tokių stres testų laikotarpį. Tie stres testai ne tik tai reikalingi tai atominiai bombai, kur stato netoli Lietuvos, bet reikalingi ir mūsų transatlantiniam vertybėm, mūsų Europos vienybei, mūsų vertybiniam pagrindui, kuris vis yra išbandomas, ta tvirtybė ir iš tikrųjų vertybinė orientacija. Štai visiškai neseniai paminėjome šviesų žmogų, išėjusi iš mūsų, palikusi mus Zbignevą Bžezinskį, ir vis prisimindavom jo nuotykius iš medžioklės Lietuvoje, kuomet jisai nušovė 2 šernus ir juos paskui pavadino Molotovu ir Ribbentropu. Tai labai mėgstu pratęsti sakydamas, kad dėja Molotovas dar gyvas ir ieško savo Ribbentropo. Laikai tokie, kad vėl tenka grįžti prie ištakų, vėl reikia žiūrėti, ar mes tik tai lozungais ir savo galbūt tokiais pareiškimais esame ištikimi tam vertybiniam pagrindui, ant kurio statome savo demokratijos namus, savo ateitį. Ir iš tikrųjų kyla tos mintis tuomet, kai atsiranda vakuumas būtent lyderystės, vakuumas atsakomybės, kai atsiranda vakuumas tarp taip vadinamo elito, kuris save taip pavadina, ir žmonių, kurie nesupranta, ką elitas veikia, arba nemoka pateisinti, arba netiki tuo. Ir tada tas vakuumas užsipildo radikalizmu, užsipildo nacionalizmu, užsipildo populizmu, ir žmonės balsuodami rinkimuose ar referendumuose balsuoja ne todėl, kad jiems kažkokį tai suformulavo klausimą, o vedini emocijų. Ir tuomet priima sprendimus. Aš tikrai čia nenoriu kritikuoti tų sprendimų, neturiu tokias turbūt ir moralinės ir kitokios teisės, bet vis tiek mes turim rezultatą, turim Brexitą, turim ir tam tikrų politinių jėgų iškilimą, bet vis dėlto, drįsiu teikti, esame pernelyg atsipalaidavę ir pasitikintys tuo procesu, jo savieiga, o turime pagrindo galbūt susitelkti ir laimėti ir informacinį karą, ir hibridinį karą, ir iš tikrųjų įvertinti tos pokyčius, kurie šiuo metu vyksta pasaulyje. O pokyčiai netokie jau ir blogi iš tikrųjų, nes kalbant apie kaimyninės šalies investicijas, į kaimyninės šalies pastangas, žiūrėkit, turim ir nesėkmių. yra kiek lūkesčių ir iliuzijų buvo iš rinkimų Jungtinėse Amerikos valstijose. Kiek visi tikėjosi iš kitos, sakysim, pusės barikadų, kad viskas gal pradės eižėti ir transatlantinė vienybė, NATO, požiūris į Rusiją principinis, kiti dalykai, gėrė šampaną, kai kas šventė, teko nusivilti. Tikėjosi galbūt ir iš rinkimų Nyderlanduose kažko to panašaus. Aš manau, irgi buvo tikėjo. Investavo į situaciją Juodkalnijoje, netgi buvo mėginama vykdyti perversmą. Nepavyko. Tikrai niekiek nebejoju, nepavyks ir Vokietijoje. Elmaras Brokas čia yra, gal jis turi kokią kitą nuomonę, nors tikiuosi, kad ne. Nepavyks. Bet tai ne todėl, kad mes esame susitelkę arba mes esame, sakykime, iš tikrųjų tvirti savo požiūriuose, nuoseklus, todėl, kad tiesiog taip susiklosti. Mes turim potencialą ir turim galimybės iš tikrųjų turėti tą lyderystę, bet neįmanoma tik tada, kai prisijime atsakomybę. Lyderystė, kuri kviečia tuščiais lozungais, niekam nedaro įspūdžio. Ir šiuo metu kaip tik apie tai ir kalbamės. Manau, kad tai netgi nepriklauso nuo šalies dydžio. Labai gerai, kad kalbame Vilniuje. Tikrai nedideliai šaliai. Puikiai suprantam, kad niekada nepadarysim įspūdžio nei savo gamtos resursais, nei kažkokiais lobiais ar turtais, tačiau mes visada privalom būti aktyvūs ten, kur visada būdavom. Ir kur būdavom aktyvūs ir rytų partnerystės šalyse, ir Ukrainoje, ir Gruzijoje, ir Moldovoje. Ir visose tose šalyse situacija labai sudėtinga ir šiandieną. Ir tikrai nėra ta sėkmė garantuota ir savaime suprantama. Ir taip ir tikrai nebus be mūsų aktyvaus ir kažkokio tai proaktyvaus netgi dalyvavimo. Visų aš noriu pabrėžti. Tie, kurie valdžioje, tie, kurie opozicijoje, tie institutai, kurie čia buvo paminėti. Ir Kurtas Volkeris, štai labai smagu, kad gavo tokį labai atsakingą paskirimą ir mes kalbėjomės varyte apie tai, ką reikėtų padaryti, kad padėtų mūsų broliams Ukrainoje iš tikrųjų išlysti iš tos duobės, iš tos pelkės. Galim daug ką nuveikti. Aišku, ta pergalė, kaip sakau, nėra garantuota, bet pralaimėjimas to labiau nėra garantuotas. Jo labiau, kad mes esam ir nusiteikę ir manau, pasiryžę tęsti tai, kas buvo pradėta. Nežiūriu laikrodį, Vladai, tos 8 minutės dar nepraėjo, bet aš stengiuosi būti disciplinuotas. Tai ačiū.
Ačiū. Dabar žodį tars mūsų svečias iš Jungtinių Amerikos valstijų, kongresmenas Lincolnas Diaz Ballartas.
Thank you very much. I was born in a country very close to the United States, a country called Cuba. When I was 4 years old, I arrived in the United States. I was able there to, after many years of study and work, become a lawyer. And then I was elected to the Congress of the United States and for 2 decades represented South Florida in that Congress. Yesterday when I passed through Frankfurt Airport on the way here, a young man who worked at the airport came up to me and said, when he saw my American passport, he said, "May I ask you, sir, the United States is really going through extraordinarily difficult times. Life there is horrible, is it not?" And I said, "Please don't let the press coverage confuse you. The reality of the matter is that the United States is the land of opportunity." I didn't obviously go into my life story, but I said it's the place that if you go and you work and you have a dream, you can make that dream into reality. Today, I am here because of the honor of the invitation I received from President Adamkus and my dear friend Sigimantas Pavilionis. What I heard from them this morning is a clarity that I have rarely heard in many years. Sometimes it is said, I think, that common sense is the least common of the senses. What I heard today from President Adamkus and from Sigimantas Pavilionis and the distinguished foreign minister is common sense. Here in Lithuania, You are free and you are safe because you are a member of the European Union and you are a member of NATO. That is a reality. You worked for that. You made it possible, and because of the fact that you're a member of NATO and you're a member of the European Union, you're safe. There are neighbors very close to us who, as was mentioned earlier, are not in that situation. Thus, they're under extreme danger and are suffering, in the case of our Ukrainian brothers, not a cold war, a hot war of blood and suffering. Let me make, and I know I speak for my friends in Washington who expressed their admiration and their solidarity with you. America is back. Don't let the trees confuse the forest or obscure the forest. The United States of America is back. And the United States of America is behind, is supportive, is in full solidarity with its friends again. And sometimes, again, that common sense seems to be the least common of the senses. Friends are different from adversaries. Friends are to be supported. Friends are to receive solidarity. Friends are to receive support, are to receive admiration. And that reality of the United States being back, cognizant of the difference between friends and non-friends, is the defining change of our era. Don't let the trees confuse the forest. And so it is very important for me, it's a great honor to be part of this moment when I see that Lithuania is poised to regain its leadership in this region and stand as a leader for the consolidation and the progress that has been achieved in this era. The reality of the matter is that as we look at where we are, and when we realize that just a few decades ago, it seemed absolutely impossible for us to be having a conversation in freedom here, a dialogue in freedom, and in a country independent and free and sovereign, we realize that good will triumph over evil as long as men and women of goodwill think together, and work to progress, to make progress for the values that constitute that goodness in contrast to evil. So to President Adamkus, thank you for convening us. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for, I mentioned the facts that differentiate Lithuania and its present from what could have been a situation of not only great tension, but extraordinary threat. And that is, you are a member of the European Union. You are a member of NATO. You saw the forest despite trees, and you took necessary steps. As the necessary steps that have been pointed out for the future have to be taken so that we can continue to make progress, and at the end of the day, realize that despite all the problems that exist in any human endeavor, because no human endeavor is perfect, it is perfectible, but it is not perfect. Evil is evil, and the forces that fight evil are those to be supported, admired, and joined. And so thank you for the honor of being able to have been here today with this distinguished, extraordinarily distinguished panel.
Ačiū ponui Edės Belartui už tikrai įkvepiantį pranešimą. Dabar išgirsime buvusio Ukrainos prezidento Viktoro Juščenkos požiūrį kalbamais klausimais.
Перш за все, я дякую пану президенту Адамкусу, нашим литовським друзям за можливість приїхати у вашу країну і вести дискусію, яка дуже близька моєму серцю.
Visų pirma, aš noriu padėkoti ponui Adamkui ir mūsų visiems draugams, kurie pakvietė mane į šitą konferenciją, kad aš galėčiau priimti tą bendrą diskusiją, kuri yra aktuali ir mūsų regionui, ir mums visiems.
Я особливо хочу подякувати президенту Адамкусу за ті слова, які він щойно сказав з трибуни про мою націю, мою країну.
Ir aš tai ypatingai noriu padėkoti ponui Adamkui, kuris pasakė šiandien iš tos tribūnos apie mano tautą, apie mano valstybę.
Це надзвичайно дорого коштує.
Čia iš tikrųjų yra labai brangų žodžiai.
Я спробую свій виступ максимально тезово сформувати.
Aš pabandysiu savo pranešimą padaryti labai trumpą ir tokį labai tezinį.
Я хочу спочатку закликати, давайте ми подивимося, що з нами робиться вдома в Європі.
Ir aš noriu jūs paprašyti, kad mes pradžiai pagalvotumėm ir pažiūrėtumėm, kas su mumis darosi šiandien čia, mūsų namuose, Europoje.
У Європі сьогодні 7 конфліктів.
Europa turi šiandien 7 konfliktus.
6 із них на сході Європи.
6 iš jų Europos rytuose.
Східна Європа стала поясом дестабілізації.
Rytų Europa pasidarė toks kaip destabilizuojanti juosmenis.
Від Нагірного Карабаху, Південної Осетії, Абхазії, Крим, Придністров'я, Донбас.
Nuo Karabacho, Osetijos, Krimo, Pridnestrės, Donbaso.
Якби в нашій дискусії приймав Уінстон Черчилль,
Ir kai mūsų diskusijoje dabar dalyvautum Winstonas
він
Churchillis,
би сказав би,
jis tada pasakytum:
шановні політики
gerbėmiai politikai
європейського масштабу і світу,
Europos ir pasaulio mastu,
подивіться на політичну карту Європи.
pasižiūrėkite į politinį Europos žemėlapį.
Чи ви не бачите залізний занавес від Балтії до Чорного моря?
Ar jūs nematote tą užuolaidą metalinę nuo Baltijos iki Juodosios jūros?
23 роки назад нас повчали, що в Азербайджані то внутрішній етнічний конфлікт.
23 metus prieš tai mums sakė, kad Azerbaidžane tai yra vidaus konfliktas.
22 роки назад нас повчали, що в Придністров'ї то внутрішній етнічний конфлікт.
Prieš 22 metus mums irgi sakė, kad Pridnestrė tai irgi yra vidaus konfliktas.
9 років назад нам подали російсько-кавказьку війну як внутрішній етнічний грузинський конфлікт.
O prieš 9 metus mums pateikė Gruzijos ir Abchazijos kaip vidinį etninį konfliktą.
Зараз те саме відбувається з Україною.
Dabar tas pats darosi ir Ukrainoje.
Чи ми не робимо першої помилки, коли ми невірно на політичному рівні визначаємо дефініції?
Ar mes nedarome tos politinės klaidos, kai mes politiniam lygmenyje neteisingai darom tas definicijas?
У кожному з тих конфліктів, які я вам назвав,
Kiekviename šitam konflikte, kurį aš jums įvardinau,
агресор є один –
agresorius yra vienas.
є Росія.
Tai yra Rusija.
Чому конфлікт на сході України називають українським питанням?
Kodėl konfliktą Ukrainos rytuose vadina ukrainietiškų klausimų?
А те, що робиться в Придністров'ї, називають молдовським питанням.
O kas darosi Pridnestrėje, sako, tai yra Moldovos klausimas.
А те, що в Абхазії, Осетії, називають грузинським
O
питанням.
kas Abchazijoje ir Osetijoje, sakoma, kad tai yra Gruzijos klausimas.
А те, що в Нагірному Карабахі, називають азербайджанським
O
питанням.
kas yra Kalnų Karabache, tai sako, tai yra Azerbaidžano konfliktas.
Я кличу всіх нас, щоб ми зробили ще один крок.
Aš šaukiu visus mūsų, kad mes padarytume dar vieną žingsnį.
І один перед одним сказали правду і правильне визначення.
Ir vienas prieš kitą pasakytumėm tiesą ir teisingą išvadą.
Всі питання, які я назвав, називаються одним словом – російське питання.
Visi tie klausimai, kuriuos aš įvardinau, vadinasi vienu žodžiu rusiškas klausimas.
І в кожних цих точках вже стоять російські військові бази.
Ir visose šitose taškuose jau stovi Rusijos bazės karinės.
Тому
Dėl to
я гадаю, що ми повинні зрозуміти, що те, що відбувається на сході Європи,
mes turėtumėm suprasti, tas, kas darosi Europos rytuose,
насправді є конфліктом
iš tikrųjų yra konfliktas.
феодальної епохи,
Tai yra feudalizmo,
азійського типу,
tokio azijietiško tipo,
з європейською демократією.
su europinė demokratija.
Насправді це є конфлікт вільної людини і раба.
Iš tikrųjų, tai yra konfliktas laisvo žmogaus su vergu.
Якщо ми зрозуміємо, що всі події, які ми зараз аналізуємо на сході Європи,
Ir kai mes suprasim, kad visi tie įvykiai, kuriuos mes dabar analizuojam Europos rytuose,
насправді не вписуються в національну карту,
iš tikrųjų neįsipaišo į tą nacionalinį žemėlapį,
а насправді є конфлікти геополітичного визначення,
o iš tikrųjų yra geopolitiniai konfliktai,
ми з вами легко прийдемо до слідуючого важливого висновку.
mes su jumis tada labai lengvai prieisim prie kitos labai tokios loginės išvados.
Геополітичний конфлікт треба врегульовувати геополітичним інструментарієм.
Geopolitinį konfliktą reikia reguliuoti su geopolitiniais instrumentais.
Ми зараз ведемо перемовини по врегулюванню конфлікту з неким Захарченко.
Mes dabar kalbamės apie konfliktus reguliuojam su kažkokiu tai Zacharčenko.
По нашому законодавству це лідер терористичного групування.
Pagal mūsų įstatymą tai yra teroristinės grupuotės lyderis.
Точно такий же Платницький.
Toks pats yra ir ponas Platnickis.
Ми розуміємо, що Захарченко і Платницький не є джерелом агресії.
Mes suprantam, kad Platnickis ir Zacharčenko tai nėra agresijos šaltinis.
Ми розуміємо, що ці угрупування не є джерелом війни.
Mes suprantam, kad šitos grupuotės nėra karo šaltinio.
Що насправді джерело війни живе в Кремлі.
Kad iš tikrųjų tas karo šaltinis gyvena Kremliuje.
Але ми ведемо мирний переговорний процес у форматі Мінськ-2.
Bet mes kalbamės apie taikos derybas procese formate Minskas 2,
де жодного разу не згадується слово Росія.
kur nei vieno karto nieks nemini žodžio Rusija.
Чи ми цього не розуміємо?
Ar mes šito nesuprantam?
Ми б'ємо по мішку, а не по ослу.
Mes daužom maišą, bet ne asilą.
Ми б'ємо по голоблі, а не по коню.
Mes kažkaip taip vis dėlto mušam būtent ne medį, o mušam jo išteklius.
Я призиваю нас бути чесними.
Aš noriu, kad mes būtumėm
У нас
sąžiningi.
немає часу, так як у Нагірному Карабасі конфлікті чи Придністровському, 22 роки чекати стихійного якогось врегулювання.
Mes neturime dabar laiko, kaip Kalnų Karabache arba Pridniestrės konflikte 22 metus laukti kažkokios tokios stichinio konflikto sprendimo.
Я великого вам секрету не відкрию, що Путін слабкий.
Aš jums didelės paslapties nepasakysiu, kad Putinas nėra stiprus,
Що Росія слабка.
kad Rusija nėra stipri.
Країна, яка має валовий внутрішній продукт менше італійського, голландського,
Valstybė, kuri turi vidaus produktą mažesnį už Olandiją arba už Italiją.
я не говорю про інші країни Європи,
Aš jau nekalbu apie kitas Europos valstybės.
звісно, не може економічно дотягувати до амбіцій імперських.
Žinoma, negali ekonomiškai dasitraukti iki imperialistinių ambicijų.
Нам не вистачає двох речей,
Mums neužtenka dviejų dalykų,
щоб дати на такі виклики відповідь.
kad duoti tą atsakymą į tą iššūkį.
Це на мій погляд.
Čia mano požiūriai.
Пункт перший.
Pirmas punktas.
Ми ще не знайшли солідарності, як оцінювати цю ситуацію, яка виникла в Східній Європі і, зокрема, в Україні.
Mes dar neturim to solidarumo, kai įvertinta situacija, kuri įvyko Rytų Europoje ir Ukrainoje.
Хтось її називає АТО,
Kažkas tai ją vadina antiteroristinė operacija.
Українське питання.
Ukrainietiškų klausimų.
Значить, то не наше питання.
Tai
Все таки українське.
Čiagi kaip ir ne mūsų klausimas, tai yra Ukrainos klausimas.
Відсутність солідарності в політичній діагностиці
Tai yra solidarumo neturėjimas tokioje politinėje diagnostikoje.
нас приводить до слідуючого, більш вразливої позиції.
Mus priveda prie dar vienos labai jautrios pozicijos.
У нас немає солідарного плану.
Mes neturim solidaraus plano.
Як з цим злом боротися?
Kaip su šitu blogiu kovoti?
Тому що ще в Європі, і не тільки в Європі,
Nes dar Europoje ir ne tik tai Europoje
пробують запитувати, по кому дзвонить дзвін.
bando paklausti, pagal ką dabar skamba varpai.
Я часто чую від політиків про безальтернативність дипломатії.
Aš labai dažnai girdžiu iš politikų apie tai, kad alternatyvaus kelio diplomatijai nėra.
Хочу поправити.
Noriu patikslinti,
Дипломатія важлива.
kad diplomatija yra svarbi.
Дипломатія – невід'ємний компонент.
Diplomatija tai yra toks komponentas be išimties,
Обов'язковий компонент,
būtinas komponentas,
але не самодостатній.
bet jis yra nepilnas.
Ми повинні розуміти, для того, щоб врегулювати те, що коїться в Східній Європі,
Mes turėtumėm suprasti, kad išreguliuoti tas, kas darosi rytų Europoje,
нам потрібний і дипломатичний компонент,
mums reikalingas ir diplomatinis komponentas,
і мілітарний
ir
компонент,
militaristinis komponentas,
і фінансовий
ir
компонент,
finansinis
і
komponentas,
економічний,
ir ekonominis,
і санкційний,
ir sankcinis,
і гуманітарний.
ir humanitarinis.
Я завершую.
Aš į pabaigą.
В Україні 1 мільйон 700 біженців.
Ukrainoje 1 milijonas 700 tūkstančių yra pabėgėlių.
У нас це найбільша міграція в Європі з 46 року.
Čia didžiausia migracija Europoje nuo 1946 metų.
У нас не працює жодної міжнародної гуманітарної програми.
Pas mus neveikia jokios tarptautinės humanitarinės programos.
Це так, як ми відносимося до лиха.
Čia taip, kaip mes žiūrime tą tragediją.
І останнє.
Ir paskutinė.
Я хотів це в вигляді поскриптума сказати.
Aš norėčiau pasakyti tai kaip poskriptum.
Російська економіка,
Rusijos ekonomika.
а економіка – це м'яза війни.
Ekonomika tai yra kaip ir to karo raumenis.
Один великий політик
Vienas labai didelis politikas pasakė,
складається з двох труб
susidaro iš dviejų vamzdžių.
– нафти і газу.
Tai yra iš naftos ir iš dujų.
82% енергоресурсів Росії споживає Європа.
82% energetinių resursų būtent Rusijos vartoja Europą.
Я думаю, що ми повинні нарешті зрозуміти, що це є одне із активних джерел фінансування тої політики, яку проводить Путін.
Ir mes turėtumėm suprasti, kad tai yra pagrindinis šaltinis finansuoti tai politikai Rusijos, kurią dabar veda Putinas.
І мене дивує, коли проходить дискусія в Європі про Північний потік-2.
Ir man stebi ta diskusija, kuri dabar vedama Europoje apie tą Nord Stream 2.
Нам кажуть, це не політичне питання,
Mums sako, tai yra ne politinis klausimas.
це пряма політика.
Čia yra iš tikrųjų tiesioginė
Це
politika.
самий ефективний її інструментарій.
Čia yra pats didžiausias jos efektyvus instrumentas.
Будемо єдині.
Būkim vieningi.
Дякую за увагу.
Ačiū labai.
Kviečiu pasisakyti buvusią kandidatę į Moldovos prezidentus, šios šalies opozicijos lyderę Mają Sandu.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's really an honor for me to participate at this event and to be able to share my views based on my country's experience. The geopolitical turbulence over the past quarter century has taught us that Moldova can become a real functional state only within the European Union. Trying to be pro-European and pro-Russian at the same time courts disaster. Russia today is replaying its 19th century geopolitical tug of war in the region. It has all the ingredients. A relentless fight over spheres of influence, no matter the human costs, buffer zones, deterrence through conventional and nuclear forces, incentives and punishments for loyalties and disobedience. Russia is seeking to carve out a security perimeter around itself and come to an accommodation with the West, dividing these spheres of influence. Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova are key parts of this struggle. Russia perceives any attempts by these states to pursue their own destiny, to become functional European democracies, as an exit from its sphere of influence. And it punishes any of such efforts with economic blockades or through retaliatory measures. If Russia feels that it might lose control, it will go to war, as it was mentioned here already. And in line with this logic, Russia managed to create strategic footprints, first in the Transnistrian region in Moldova, in South Ossetia and Abkhazia in Georgia, and now in Donbass in Ukraine. This serves to prevent post-Soviet states from pursuing independent national agendas. But in order to wage this geopolitical tug of war, Russia needs preconditions. Russia can more easier pursue its geopolitical objectives in weak and badly divided states. And to my regret, throughout Moldova's independent history, the country's successive governments have themselves chosen to play along with Russia's geopolitical game, and they are much to be blamed for Moldova's today's fragility as Russia is. Instead of charting a clear way forward and consolidating domestic forces around this goal, most of the governments in Moldova exploited the geopolitical competition in the region to pursue their narrow political agenda, playing on the fears and nostalgic feelings of the Moldovans. Moldova has always tried to have a foot in both camps, playing on the contradictions between the West and Russia, and has ultimately itself suffered the consequences of this irresponsible policy. Let's take my country today. It has a corrupt government which is hated by the people. The quality of Moldova's institutions are the worst in the region because they are fully controlled by several individuals who use them for their own purposes. And these people don't respect any rules, or they change them on the go, with a parliamentary majority in which most of the members of the parliament have been simply bought by the corrupt oligarchs. The government is in poor shape and has no external and internal support. And in this situation, to keep power, they just try to exploit the geopolitical situation. For instance, in the presidential elections last year, the so-called pro-European government, which is in power now, didn't try to consolidate the pro-European forces in Moldova. Quite the opposite. They handed the presidency over to a pro-Russian person, Igor Dodon, who now takes 60% of his instructions from the corrupt Moldovan government and the other 40% of the instructions from the Kremlin. And together, these two political forces are spreading now hate and fear in the society, trying to keep it divided. This government says that it wants Moldova to become a member of the European Union. It's a lie. This is not what it wants. This government doesn't want to have the rule of law. It doesn't want to have independent prosecutors and courts. It doesn't want to have meaningful separation of power and respect for individuals' rights. All of this would mean that they would lose power. What they really want is to have Moldova in a gray area, a buffer zone between Russia and the West. In this kind of Moldova, they can endlessly change the rules, capture government institutions to extract illegal rents, and stifle any opposition voices. That's their ideal of the country, a territory where they will be setting all the rules and change them as it suits their own purposes. The Baltic countries were wise enough to choose and firmly follow the right road. And I look around with respect at the Lithuanian leaders who had the vision and leadership to unite their domestic constituencies and to pursue a single agenda, the European and Euro-Atlantic future for their country, and relentlessly pursued this agenda despite all odds. This is the recipe for success for the rest of the countries which are struggling today in the region. Only through the unity of purpose, a common vision, can a country withstand Russia's geopolitical offensive. But if politicians deliberately pull the country into two opposite directions and alternate between Russia and the West only to stay in power, as they are doing now in Moldova, this policy leads to disaster. Russia can turn around weak states, especially those who willingly lend themselves to these games. Those countries who do implement responsible policies, those governments which do believe in the European values, in the Western values, and they pursue these values, with those countries, it's going to be more difficult for Russia to deal. Yes, Russia is not going to like it, but they will have to accept this reality. So this is what we try to call today. We call for the unity of the authentic pro-Western, pro-democratic forces, regardless whether this is civil society, opposition parties, or in the lucky countries, governments, because only with the unity of such forces we can withstand and oppose the attempts of the totalitarian regimes, of the Kremlin regime, to steal our freedom and to steal our future. Thank you.
Žodis suteikiamas buvusiam Rumunijos prezidentui.
Is working again. Okay. It's okay.
Buvusiam Rumunijos prezidentui Trajanui Basescu.
Well, thank you very much. I will try to answer as much as possible to the name of the panel, which is regarding possibilities for broader regional synergies. In my opinion, we have a lot to do in this respect, and I heard the politicians talking in advance. I have to be honest, I never heard such speech from a leader about his own country like Maia Sandu delivered here. In my opinion, like politicians which know acceptable good Republic of Moldova, are a lot of good things, a lot of progresses in Moldova in last years, and the country must be supported to continue in this dispute between the ones which want to have Moldova belong Kremlin and ones which like to have Moldova belong Brussels and ones to like to have Moldova belong Romania. We have to continue to support the last two categories, even if they are not perfect politicians. With the theory, let's kill the corrupted persons and later we will see what we will do with the elections, Moldova will go straight belong Moscow. Will go straight belong Moscow. Now is the moment for Moldova to concentrate any political forces which think to westbound, and in the same time we have to give a clear signal to Republic of Moldova, to Ukraine, to Georgia, that in this very moment no one serious politician is thinking at the extension of European Union, for example, in East. The priority of European Union is the Balkans. In these countries are politicians which still continue to sell the idea of becoming EU member states. It's not a realistic approach. I don't believe European Union is prepared in next 2 decades to absorb countries like Moldova, Ukraine, or Georgia. Coming from this reality, let's see what we can do in this eastern part. The main approach in last years after Ukrainian events was to ask Americans to come. But no one increased the budget at 2%, the budget of the armies at 2% according with the obligations which we have in NATO. And this is not necessarily a Trump approach. This was the message of Obama a few years ago. Trump only took the message and continued to remember us that instead of asking Americans to come, it's better to invest in our defense. In my opinion, is the first step to be done. You cannot ask somebody else to defend Romania when Romania don't invest to prepare his army to defend the country. All of us must understand that. Additionally, is a reality. And look at the countries where NATO came under the command of United States. It's extremely difficult for a foreign army to defend a country far away by his own borders. It's extremely difficult. The first obligation for each country is to make the maximum to defend with his army the country and to ask for help at one certain moment, but we cannot ask somebody else to defend us. Is an approach which I very much believe, and I believe is the right approach. You cannot ask the Americans to spend money for Romanians, for Polish, for Latvians, for Baltics, when we don't spend reasonable money to modernize our armies. Look, is an idea which probably can be assumed by all of us which cry about the risk with the Russian Federation, which is a real risk. But we do what we have to do to defend us, to defend our values, to defend our democracies. We have to admit that our main objective was that if we have some resources, to spread these resources to the population, like a signal that the capitalism is a reality and in our countries. Okay, was maybe a normal approach in first 20 years, but now is the time of realistic decisions. We, the eastern flank of NATO and EU, we must decide that is our minimal obligation to allocate 2% of our GDP for defense. Another reality, Russia is not extremely powerful. And we have this demonstration with the occasion of Ukrainian conflict. I was in function at that time as President of Romania. All our analyses demonstrate that the intention of Kremlin was to control the eastern part of Ukraine and south part of Ukraine and to come again on the Danube mouths. For this reason, they go to Mariupol, but they stop in Mariupol area looking at what is happening in Odessa, which was not very positive for the Russians. It was clear that no resources, because the final intention of the Russians was to reach again the Danube mouths. Our conclusion at that time was that they are not enough powerful, but from political point of view, they dominate the game. Solution here is solidarity of all our countries regarding the sanctions against the Russian Federation. We take a series of measures. Few weeks ago, the American Senate decided additional sanctions, but look, we in Europe, we react to deep sanctions. Okay, it's perfect to have extremely political approach. I cannot say correctly political approach, because it's not a correctly political approach. But the reality is that if we want to obtain something with the sanctions, we must deepen the sanctions and to accept and the reality that European companies will lose money. But it's more easy for European companies to support the losses than for Putin, which have the crude oil at half price, compared with the moment when they invade Ukraine. It's again a problem of solidarity. We are solidar on the end of the day, not necessarily with the Americans, but we are solidar with Ukraine. Because these sanctions are due to situation of Ukraine. We are not so solidar, is my conclusion. Even if we, in our statements, we cry for Ukraine. Let's look at another area. You will not find a country in eastern flank, either if we talk about the Poland, Romania, Baltics, Bulgaria. Everybody dreamed to be the leaders. But to have the leadership means to have an extremely powerful economy, an extremely powerful army, an extremely powerful education system, an extremely powerful health system, an extremely powerful research system in order to be always in advance. This story with the leadership, when you ask somebody else to defend you, is a story which can be evocated in round tables where nobody is taking seriously the ambitions. In my opinion, we must be honest with us if we like to contribute in real terms in these times to our security. And the main problem is to diminish a little bit our attention for other expenditures and to put the money and to build a real capacity to defend our countries. And when we have this capacity, to ask and others to come defending us. Another example of how we can cooperate in this region. Look at Poland and Romania, and to the Baltics. 2 minutes and I will finish. We buy now military equipments. Okay, but we never discuss, let's put our military industries together. Let's finance together new projects and to produce equipments for our armies. A lot of projects which can be done here in order to increase our capacity to defend our interests and, main point, to discourage the Russians to think about the possibility to attack one of our countries. This is a point of view which probably is not very much appreciated in this conference, but from the experience of 10 years as head of state, I am now a pensioner which is free to say what he took, what he believed. Thank you.
Gerbėmėjai, klausimams ir diskusijoms laiko dėja neliko, todėl aš labai dėkoju mūsų šios sesijos pranešėjams, taip pat visiems dalyvavusiesiems ir kviečiu klausytis kitos sesijos.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Take care.
Dear friends, for a keynote address and I believe a rich introduction to the second panel on Ukraine, I would like to introduce Ambassador Kurt Volker, who is the United States Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations. During the George W. Bush presidency, he served in various positions related to the world security affairs. In 2008, he was appointed as a United States ambassador to NATO. From February 2012 until now, he was an executive director of the McCain Institute for International Leadership. And I would like to underline that the decision of the current United States administration to appoint Mr. Volker to his present position shows different and, in my opinion, more realistic approach towards the situation in our region and the Russia's aggression in Ukraine compared to a previous administration. Dear Kurt, I know that you just come back from an exotic and nevertheless dangerous country called Belarus, where you had met Kremlin's key person on Ukraine, sad known Vladislav Surkov. Alongside your address, it would be interesting to hear if Russia's foreign policy continued Soviet legacy based on 4 letters. Нет, no. No for democracy, no for human rights, no for peaceful and mutual cooperation with the West. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Adronis. Thank you very much. It is an honor for me to be here. As was mentioned earlier, I am the Executive Director of the McCain Institute for International Leadership, which is a part of Arizona State University. But I'm speaking to you today in my capacity as the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations. I say it's an honor to be here because we have such distinguished guests. It is truly a pleasure. And it's also a pleasure to be here because we are among so many friends. From Lithuania, from Sweden, from Ukraine, from Germany. So it is truly a pleasure. And finally, let me also say it is an inspiration to be here. And thank you, Congressman Diaz, for saying the United States is back, because I believe that, and the United States is back. And it's an inspiration because of the inspiration of the Baltic states, and it is personified by President Adamkus, someone born in a free Lithuania, who fought as a resistance fighter, who fled the Soviet occupation to spend a career in the United States, and came back to lead his country when it was free again, never giving up hope and helping Lithuania to become the great country that it is today. So that is an inspiration for us, and it tells us, if nothing else, never forget. Remember and continue on and to fight on, because what seems impossible today is not impossible tomorrow. As was mentioned by President Yushchenko and others, we are here today where a hot war is raging on the European continent less than an hour-and-a-half's flight from here. This cannot and should not happen. It's something, again, we cannot forget, and we must do everything possible to bring about a conclusion. And let me be perfectly clear. First off, the reason for that is the human suffering itself. More than 10,000 people have died. There have been millions of displaced persons, and the risks to Europe are greater than just those risks to the people of Ukraine. When we see that there are invasions, occupations, changing borders by force, this tells us that we are facing a dangerous time, not just about one country, but about all of our countries. Not long ago, it was a year ago last summer, I had the chance to speak at the Baltic American Freedom Foundation, and I was asked to speak about why Baltic security matters to the United States. And I'll put it very simply, because your freedom is our freedom. If your freedom is under threat or challenge, that is a challenge for all of us. And by the same token, if your countries are successful, prosperous, democratic, and secure, so are we all. And that's why it matters. Now, we did talk a bit about the conflict in Ukraine. Let me be clear about United States goals. And these were articulated by Secretary of State Tillerson most recently in July 9th in Kiev when he visited there. The United States goals are to restore the territorial integrity of Ukraine and its sovereignty, and to help to ensure the safety and security of all Ukrainian citizens, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, or religion. If we can achieve those goals, I think we will achieve something quite important indeed. A first step to that would be a lasting and viable ceasefire. I know that there are discussions underway in the Normandy format towards a so-called back-to-school ceasefire, which would take effect very soon, and of course we support and stand by that objective. That is a step on the way, and again the overall objective is the restoration of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and the safety and security of all of its people. Now, I want to speak not just about the conflict, but about our aspirations and our hopes. What are we trying to achieve? And to do this, I want to remind all of us that what we are trying to achieve is not new. And in fact, we can go back to the Helsinki Accords of 1975, which were signed not by Russia and not by a Russia going through a difficult democratic transition. They were signed by the Soviet Union, a superpower at the time. And in the Helsinki Accords, all of us, including Moscow and including all of the capitals of Europe, agreed on 10 key principles guiding relations between participating states, and I'll read them. Sovereign equality, respect for the rights inherent in sovereignty, refraining from the threat or use of force, inviolability of frontiers, territorial integrity of states, peaceful settlement of disputes, non-intervention in internal affairs, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, including the freedom of thought, conscience, religion, or belief, equal rights and self-determination of peoples, cooperation among states, and fulfillment in good faith of obligations under international law. No one could come up with a better list today of what we seek to achieve for our transatlantic community and all the people of a Euro-Atlantic community than that list agreed in 1975. And moreover, that list didn't die then. That list lived on. In 1990, in the Charter of Paris, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, transformation in the Soviet Union, those principles were reaffirmed, and they were spelled out in greater detail. And I want to just read a couple more passages. In the Charter of Paris, it says, we solemnly pledge our full commitment to the 10 principles of the Helsinki Final Act, those that I just read. They form the basis of our relations. In accordance with our obligations under the Charter of the United Nations, we renew our pledge to refrain from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. We reaffirm our commitment to settle disputes by peaceful means. And, as I just mentioned with respect to the Baltic states and your freedom, security is indivisible. Security of every participating state is inseparably linked to that of all the others. So when we see a war in Europe as we see today, we cannot be passive bystanders. We must do something. These principles were reaffirmed and reaffirmed many, many times in the founding documents for the Partnership for Peace, in the Budapest Memorandum, in the CFE Treaty, where it also said that no state party may station conventional armed forces on the territory of another state party without the agreement of that state party, a key principle of consent to the presence of foreign forces on a country's territory. These principles were also reaffirmed in the NATO-Russia Founding Act, including reference to the Helsinki Final Act and its 10 principles. Again, repeating respect for the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of all states. So that is our vision. That is our goal, to restore a sense of order and architecture and security for all states in Europe based on respect, based on cooperation, based on peaceful settlement of disputes. Now let me again mention another story about the Baltic states. It came up earlier, and this gets to the question of responsibility. In the United States, we have a responsibility for these principles and these values. In Europe, in the European Union, and NATO, we have a responsibility for these values. And also in the countries that are not part of the EU or NATO, but part of our wider Euro-Atlantic family, we have a responsibility to uphold and aspire to these values and see them realized in societies. In 1999, I attended the Washington summit NATO held. It was the summit at which Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary were admitted to NATO. And of course, the Baltic states were anxious to receive invitations as well. And at the time, the conventional wisdom was that it's too hard. We can't possibly bring the Baltic states into NATO without provoking a conflict with Russia. We can't possibly bring the Baltic states in and have NATO be able to defend its territory. We can't possibly do it for any number of other reasons. In 2002, the Baltic states were invited to join NATO at the Prague summit. And what changed? What changed between 1999 and 2002 was our understanding that whereas in what 1999 we thought was impossible, the Baltic states proved it was possible. We set out criteria and standards for membership. We said that countries had to have civil control of the military. We said that they had to have resolution of disputes with their neighbors to the extent possible. They had to be democracies. They had to be market economies and so forth. They had to be contributors to security. The Baltic states were the best performers under the membership action plan that NATO created to help countries prepare for NATO membership. Where it would not have been credible in '99 to invite them to join NATO, in 2002 it would not have been credible to invite anybody to join NATO if we did not invite the Baltic states. It was their own performance and their own achievements in realizing those values in societies that made that possible. And that is the message I think we, looking at the states of Ukraine, of Moldova, of Georgia today, our advice is do the same thing as the Baltic states. Do the homework, make yourselves as successful, and that will make the possibilities appear that seem impossible today. We all have responsibilities. I certainly hope that as an American, my country lives up to its responsibilities. I hope that as a proud member of a transatlantic community, our community lives up to those responsibilities, and we wish the best for all of us, whether they are in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Moldova, or in the Baltic states, or anywhere in the Euro-Atlantic world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Volker, for your address, which gives a lot of food for thought for all of us. Of course, the 10 principles of Helsinki Final Act are very valuable, but I think for the current situation, especially for Ukraine, the javelins also would be very useful and very valuable. Shortly about today's topic, praising the Ukrainian fight against the Kremlin invaders, I can say there is no need to restore any leadership. It's there, on the front line in Donbass, and the leaders are casual Ukrainian brothers and sisters, patriots of their country and freedom lovers. And our countries who support Ukraine in its fight are already leading the West's attitude towards this war. So why should we restore anything if it's already here? Maybe not articulated that much, but is clearly visible in our actions. I would emphasize that the feeling of leadership is here, but sometimes we struggle to have an efficient strategy to make our actions decisive. So, in my opinion, this is the essence of today's debate. Dear distinguished panelists, due to a strict schedule, I would like to ask you to limit your speech to 8 minutes maximum. Keeping the schedule tight will demonstrate our real political solidarity. Yes, first of all, I would like to ask Mr. Bogdan Borusewicz, Deputy Speaker of the Senate of the Republic of Poland. His roots of political career date back to the communist time, where he was an active supporter of free and democratic Poland since his studies time. Mr. Bogdan was one of the main activists of the Solidarity movement and served in various positions after the Solidarity Revolution won. He was even an acting president of Poland for a few hours after Mr. Komorowski's resignation from Sejm on 2010, and called by the media president for one day. Mr. Bogdan answered, "At least I'll end up as a question in quizzes." Yes, Mr. Borusewicz, floor is yours, please.
Dziękuję bardzo. Dziękuję bardzo. Szanowni Państwo, Ekscelencje, w latach 90. wszyscy byliśmy optymistami. Teraz się sytuacja zmieniła, ale to nie oznacza, żebyśmy popadli w pesymizm. Jednak to nie jest tak, że w polityce sytuacja jest zastała. Ona się zmienia. Jak się zmienia, to myślę, że jeżeli Polska nie weszłaby do Unii Europejskiej wtedy, kiedy weszła, a chciałaby wejść teraz, to miałaby na pewno potężne problemy. Nie wiem, czy zostałaby przyjęta. Więc w polityce jest ważny czas, który jeżeli się otwiera, to należy go maksymalnie wykorzystać. Polska, kraje bałtyckie ten czas wykorzystały. Weszły do NATO wtedy, kiedy ten się czas otworzył, możliwość otworzyła, i natychmiast weszły do Unii Europejskiej wtedy, kiedy to było możliwe. To pokazuje dla mnie, jak się ta sytuacja zmieniła. Oczywiście zwiększyła się rola Rosji i to znaczenie Rosji, i to zarówno w regionie, jak i w polityce globalnej. Już nie będę powtarzał tego, co moi poprzednicy mówili, ale to jest dla mnie jasne. Do czego dąży Rosja w tej chwili? Rosja Putina, bo tak ją trzeba nazwać. To przecież ta Rosja też była różna w tym ostatnich kilkudziesięciu latach i są różni Rosjanie. I trzeba to uwzględniać i zawsze ja podkreślam, że Rosja Putina dąży do odtworzenia imperium. Jakie są granice tego imperium? Jakie mają być granice tego imperium? Ja myślę, że sam Putin tego nie wie, ale wie na pewno, że należy się posuwać tak daleko, jak można. Więc widać, że się posuwa. Ukraina jest doskonałym przykładem. Krym, w zasadzie nie było oporu na Krymie. I się posunął tak, że Krym włączył do Rosji. Na wschodzie Ukrainy rozpoczął się opór tężał i posunął się tylko kawałek, część Donbasu i część obwodu ługańskiego. Jeżeli by tego oporu nie było, to myślę, że byśmy obserwowali już Rosję Putina w Kijowie. Na szczęście i dobrze to dla wszystkich, Ukraińcy zdecydowali się walczyć. Czy się ponieśli olbrzymie straty, bo na wojnie sytuacja jest różna. Potencjał Ukrainy i Rosji jest znacząco różniący się na korzyść Rosji. Potencjał wojskowy rosyjski jest znacznie większy niż ukraiński, ale Ukraińcy zatrzymali Rosję. Istotne są oczywiście rozmowy mińskie, Mińsk I, Mińsk II, ale najważniejsze jest to, że nastąpił opór Ukraińców. I w tej sytuacji bardzo trudnej dla Ukrainy, która niesie bardzo dużo negatywów, my obserwujemy, że to paradoksalnie wzmocniło armię ukraińską, stworzyło ją na nowo, wzmocniło Ukrainę jako państwo. Nie chciałbym, żeby jakiekolwiek inne państwo w ten sposób było wzmacniane. To jest tragedia Ukrainy. Ale to także rzutuje na Rosję. Przede wszystkim Putin wykopał olbrzymi rów między Rosją a Ukrainą. Ja znam Ukrainę, bywałem tam wielokrotnie. Na wschodzie Ukrainy wszyscy w zasadzie rozmawiali po rosyjsku. I nikt nie zadawał pytania, czy jesteś Ukraińcem, czy Rosjaninem, bo to było nieważne. Podejrzewam, panie ministrze, że teraz, jak rozmawiają tam na wschodzie Ukrainy, tak, nadal po rosyjsku, to każdy się zastanawia i pyta się, ty jesteś Rosjaninem, czy ty jesteś Ukraińcem? Jaki jest twój stosunek do agresji Rosji? Bo przecież część obywateli ukraińskich tę agresję zaakceptowało i wspierało także. Na tej bazie Putin mógł się posunąć do przodu. Główny problem dla nas to jest to, że w Europie Środkowo-Wschodniej Rosja naruszyła granicę siłą, naruszyła granicę, a granice w naszej części Europy wszystkie uległy zmianie po wojnie w wyniku II wojny światowej. Więc to mogło naruszyć porządek w tej całej części Europy Środkowej. I to było główne niebezpieczeństwo, oprócz tego, że Rosja chciała jednak poszerzyć to swoje imperium, ale dla nas oczywiście to było główne niebezpieczeństwo i wyraźne były tendencje w tym kierunku. To, co mówił Żerenowski głośno, to zapewne na Kremlu mówili po cichu. I do Polski, i do Węgier, a weźcie sobie kawałek Ukraińcy, wy ten, a do Węgrów, a wy ten. Na szczęście to nie zadziałało. Ale to nie oznacza, że nie otworzyły jakiejś perspektywy dla tych sił w naszych krajach, które były siłami skrajnymi, są siłami skrajnymi. I prowadzą taką politykę historyczną, w której politycy, my, czy współcześni, mamy być zakładnikami historii. My w Polsce mamy takich także, którzy mówią ogólno przyjęte slogany, wydaje się bardzo pozytywne, no prawda was wyzwoli. Czyli ta prawda naszych konfliktów. A przecież w tej części Europy wszyscy walczyli z wszystkimi. i na Litwie, i na Ukrainie. I ktokolwiek zna historię, jest historykiem, o tym doskonale wie. Ale na tym są siły, które próbują żerować. I oczywiście to jest działanie sprzyjające Rosji. Bo przecież akurat na szczęście już na stosunkach polsko-niemieckich i na historii polsko-niemieckiej, trudnej, bardzo trudnej historii, II wojny światowej, dla Polaków, tego już robić nie można, na szczęście. Ale są w Polsce jak reminiscencje takie, której ta dominacja narracji historycznej próbuje przesłonić naszą przyszłość. Są eurosceptycy, którzy traktują Unię jako europejską, jako połączenie interesów narodowościowych, nacjonalnych. Każdy ciągnie do siebie. Tak? Każdy próbuje wygrać. No oczywiście, tak jest, ale to nie oznacza, że nie tworzy się wspólnej wartości, zwanej solidarnością. Przykład Ukrainy dla mnie jest jasny. Oczywiście my musimy mieć swoje zdolności obronne. Nie żądać od kogokolwiek, żeby nas obronił, jeżeli nie jesteśmy, czy nie będziemy w stanie się bronić sami. Bo najpierw trzeba się bronić samemu, a potem żądać od przyjaciół wsparcia. Artykuł 5 traktatu przecież nie funkcjonuje automatycznie. Musi być decyzja rządu. Czyli najpierw trzeba stworzyć te własne możliwości. I Polska od dłuższego czasu wydaje 2%. Teraz jest deklaracja nowego rządu, że będzie więcej niż 2%. No, ale 2% już od wielu lat jest na obronność wydawane. Ale też my, czy nasze narody, czy nasi obywatele muszą odpowiedzieć, czy jesteśmy wyzwoleni od tych problemów historii, która była między nami, i musimy sobie odpowiedzieć, czy Polacy zaakceptują wojska niemieckie w Warszawie, jeżeli będzie potrzeba, a czy Litwini zaakceptują wojska polskie w Vilniusie. To wy, Litwinie, musicie odpowiedzieć, a my musimy odpowiedzieć w Polsce. I każda według mnie negatywna odpowiedź jest przeciwko, nie to jest jedności Europy, ale przeciwko naszemu bezpieczeństwu. I próba żerowania na historii też jest przeciwko naszemu bezpieczeństwu. Współczesne problemy Unii Europejskiej. Oczywiście Unia ciągle ma problemy i będzie miała problemy. No miała problemy finansowe, nie rozpadła się, funkcjonuje dalej. Według mnie wzmocniła się, bo wprowadziła elementy, które wzmacniają Unię. Teraz ma problemy dotyczące bezpieczeństwa. Kraje Unii mają dotyczące bezpieczeństwa i na wschodzie, i także południa. To jest sytuacja połączona. Jeżeli nasze państwa odwracają się od problemu uchodźców, które mają państwa południa i Niemcy, i które proszą nas o solidarność, to jeżeli my tej solidarności nie wykazujemy, to osłabia tą solidarność, osłabi na pewno tej sytuacji, w której my możemy się znaleźć i będziemy prosić solidarność. A my jesteśmy w trudniejszej sytuacji, bo jesteśmy na obrzeżach Unii. Brexit oczywiście bardzo negatywny, ale z tego negatywnego trzeba sytuacji wyciągać pozytywne. I na pewno to trzeba pójść w związku z tym w dalszej integracji Unii Europejskiej. Dalszej integracji. Szczególnie stała współpraca obronna, czyli wspólna polityka obronna. Tu są inne możliwości i trzeba w tym kierunku pójść. I jestem pewien, że Unia w tym kierunku pójdzie. NATO, Newport, Warszawa, te spotkania NATO spowodowały, że siły NATO znalazły się na wschodniej flance. Znalazły się także na Litwie, w Polsce, Łotwie, Estonii. Polska jednostka jest na Łotwie. Rumuńska jest w Polsce. To wyraźnie tutaj po raz pierwszy przekroczyliśmy pewną granicę. I takie są konsekwencje z negatywnej polityki Rosji. Problem Ukrainy. Oczywiście, jeżeli chodzi o politykę w ogóle w stosunku do Rosji, do Ukrainy, to niezależnie od tego, jaki jest rząd, a ja jestem z partii opozycyjnej, która jest w bardzo ostrej konflikcie z partią rządzącą. Jak Państwo wiecie, w Polsce była walka o niezależność sądów. 10 dni trwały demonstracje, w których brało udział po kilkaset tysięcy ludzi. I decyzja prezydenta przerwała tą sytuację. I tu jesteśmy w konflikcie. Ale jeżeli chodzi o politykę względem Ukrainy, politykę bezpieczeństwa, nie ma konfliktu. Moja partia Platforma Obywatelska prowadziła politykę, którą kontynuuje w tej chwili Prawo i Sprawiedliwość. Bo wszyscy wiemy, że obrona niepodległości Ukrainy jest także obroną nas. To znaczy, że w naszym interesie jest podejmowanie wszystkich działań, które wspierają Ukrainę. Oczywiście w ramach naszej możliwości. Ale jesteśmy sąsiadem. Niedługo we wrześniu będzie zakończenie formowania Litpol-Batu, czyli jednostki litewsko-polsko-ukraińskiej i Ukr-Batu. To jest rzecz, która była zapoczątkowana przez poprzedni rząd i jest kontynuowana teraz. I to wskazuje, że ten stały wektor polityki jest utrzymywany. Więc chociaż tytuł konferencji mógł spowodować, że się po prostu pokłócimy, bo każdy chce być liderem, każdy chciałby być liderem, ale ja widzę, że mówimy jednym głosem. I to pokazuje, że jednak mimo wszystko, mimo różnych zawirowań, ta sytuacja, solidarność między nami istnieje. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your very valuable insights, especially about the disturbing tendencies, some waves which are coming from Kremlin and trying to seduce some of our politicians when we are starting to remember pre-war order, starting to mix history and politics. I think it's a dangerous mixture, and sometimes it could be exploded. Thank you very much. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Hans Wallmark, defense spokesperson for Moderaterna in the Sweden Parliament. Mr. Wallmark, he is a member of Parliament since 2006. He is leading a working group on security and defense in his party. And in a recent interview to media, he talked about the need to recalibrate Sweden's attitude towards the new threats. Please.
Thank you. First, thank you so much for this extraordinary program that are arranged by our sister party here in Lithuania. It is extraordinary, so all the best to the party. Secondly, as a Swede, I at least notice that we are only men here in the second panel. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be here today. And tomorrow is the European Day of Remembrance for victims of Stalinism and Nazism. An important day to remember the atrocities committed by the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century, but also to discuss the war crimes committed today here in Europe. We must learn from history, and the fight against dictatorships and oppression must go on. In recent years, the defense debate in Sweden has been vivid. I would like to use this opportunity to bring to your attention some issues in the area of defense and security policy, including the developments in Ukraine and implications for our security situation. First, let me convey some Swedish perspectives on the situation in Ukraine. Sweden is deeply concerned about the illegal annexation of Crimea and the destabilizing Russian activities in Ukraine. And it's very important to stress it's an illegal annexation. These actions involve violation of international law as well as a violation of the fundamental principles and international agreements that set the legal foundation of peaceful coexistence, as Kurt Volker's, namely the Helsinki Agreement. We in the Moderate Party, the main center-right opposition party in the Swedish parliament, are in agreement with the government parties that Sweden will not stop our protest against the Russian government's illegal actions in Ukraine. All states have the right to territorial integrity and freedom to make their own political decisions. All states must refrain from the use of violence or the threat of its use directed against the territorial integrity or political independence of another state. The current government in Ukraine is legitimate, and the parliamentary elections in 2014, monitored by accredited foreign observers, were in line with international commitments. This government must have the continuing support from the European Union. This is now more important than ever. In recent years, we have seen an increase in Russian military spending. Russia has now clearly demonstrated its capability to plan and execute complex joint military operations. More important, Russia has shown a willingness to use military means alongside other tools to achieve goals. The European Union is an important voice for helping bring about stability, but also for influencing Russia. Supporting Kiev in creating a better country is decisive in the medium and long run. Economic support is essential, and Sweden's assistance to the region is significant. Sweden is already today a contributor regarding humanitarian aid to Ukraine. This must continue, and the perspective has to be a long-term one. Sweden should also deepen our cooperation regarding security policy. The Russian hybrid warfare against Ukraine comes in many forms, regardless if it's through cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, or economic pressure. These attacks must not go unanswered. A Ukraine that are better prepared to stand against the hybrid warfare is important for all countries in our part of Europe. With truth and facts when they come with lies. With friends at Ukraine's side when Russia is nearly alone. Last spring, Anna Kinberg-Batra, leader of the Swedish opposition and chairman of my Moderate Party, visited Ukraine and President Poroshenko. Her message were that Ukraine and Europe should continue to deepen our cooperation and that the European Union must be united against the Russian aggression. From the Moderate Party, we also want to see extended sanctions against Russia. As long as Russia continues with different illegal actions, the sanctions also must continue. The Swedish debate regarding Swedish NATO membership has also been affected by the Russian aggression against Ukraine. Today, all four parties of the center-right Swedish opposition are pro-NATO parties, and the cooperation between Sweden and NATO are more extended than ever. A stronger NATO with more members are important to the stability of Europe. Thank you. Say that to the Social Democrats. It's a very fine message to the Social Democrats. The Russian aggression in Ukraine have also had implications for the Swedish security and defense policy. It highlights our need to have available and usable military forces that can be deployed and used to provide stability and to deter aggression or defeat an aggressor. The Swedish government have, in a series of agreements with us in the center-right opposition, decided to substantially strengthen the Swedish armed forces and increase Swedish defense spending. Just 1 week ago, we agreed for the third time to increase the Swedish defense spending, and this time with 860 million euros more until 2020, to a yearly budget close to 5.5 billion euros a year. A stronger Swedish defense will be important for our possibilities to cooperate with and help Ukraine in the struggle for peace and a once again unified country. The most important is the insight that security is something you build together with others. Ačiū.
I would like to thank Mr. Volker and his country and his parties, Swedish parties, for very principled position on Russia's illegal actions in Ukraine, and of course for long-standing position that the sanctions must continue. Now I would like to introduce our good friend Elmar Brok, who is a member of European Parliament since, please attention, since 1980. Also, he is a long-standing chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee. For sure, I can call him one of the most experienced persons at the European politics, and as a long-standing, one of the key persons of the EU's foreign policy. And I wonder, Elmar, and I would be very happy to hear some words about the European policy towards Russia. Isn't Russia's war in Georgia and in Ukraine, soldiers in Transnistria, also its energy geopolitics, enough to understand that Russia cannot be an honest partner to Europe? What is behind the fact that despite Kremlin disruptive policy, there still very strong voices exist that require for bettering the relationship with Russia? Please, Elmar.
Thank you very much, Andronios. I think the European Union has done a quite strong policy towards Russia. That the European Union has put on the sanctions, which, for example, cost the companies in my region a lot of jobs and money. And that is done also in other countries like Italy and Spain, which are further away from the spot. Therefore, the feeling of the importance is lower, understandable. Was done until now. I think it's an incredible success story of the European Union. And we have to take note of that. And that the Normandy format worked not to solve the Eastern Ukrainian question, but had a certain result on the containment of the conflict, is, I think, also to be seen positively. But that is not alone the solution. I believe that Russia is moving more and more towards an authoritarian regime, and is already an authoritarian regime, and that it is now also a regime which is dangerous. In Ukraine, for the first time since 1945 in Europe, a country has violated the principle of the integrity of a country and the sovereignty of a country. Therefore, the sanctions are there. And I must say, the head of the German industry has said, we do not like the sanctions, but international law is more important than business interests. And this describes the situation. In a positive way, we were able to do so, and let's hope that at the end of next month, the right person will be re-elected in Germany, continue this policy. But we have to see that we have to strengthen ourselves. That is the best answer. That was partly done by the European Union. If I look to Poland, the membership in the European Union, rule of law, democracy, market economy were helpful that Poland has today a GNP that is nearly 5 times higher than 1990. And for your country, it's perhaps even more. So let's see, this idea is a success story. Please do not forget that we have not this success story and go talk just about our depressions, what is not yet solved. We should take that position. What we have done to Ukraine, I think the free trade agreement and association agreement is of the utmost importance for Ukraine. If you see the economic development which has to do with that, the figures, this is an incredible progress. And the European Union was stubborn to stick to this agreement despite the Russian threats. Please take stock of that, take note of that. That was that achieved. And we have given more in billions as a European Union to Ukraine than others have given in millions. To stabilize the country, the economy, and have support for the development. And I must say, the biggest threat for Putin, and I believe is that he intervened in Ukraine because of that, is to have a Ukraine which is economically successful, free under the rule of law. If that would happen in the Ukraine as it happened in the past in the Baltic state, for example, that would be the biggest threat for Putin, because then he has no argument anymore for the Putin system in Moscow, and this will help the young Russians to work from the inside against this regime. To make our countries good, economically and politically, under the rule of law and democracy. And that is the reason, and I thank you for your words, in Poland, that we look a little bit afraid what is going on in Poland and the question of the rule of law. If we lose our values, we lose our strength. That's a very principal question. Just to fight for the Ukraine because of power policy reasons will not convincing enough, neither for the Ukrainians, not for us. Therefore, we have to look that we keep the rule of law and democracy within the countries of the European Union and have been economically successful and help these countries develop. The European Union spends every year 60 billion euros for the development of economically weaker countries, regions, and people. Every year. That is more every year as the whole Marshall Plan was. Every year. This should be not forgotten. The European Union also, when we come to the migration question, and its member states spend 60% of all development aid of this world. The European Union's member state finance 70% of the humanitarian aid to Syria and Iraq and the surrounding countries. And this has to take a note of too, despite our all shortcomings which are there. And here the shortcomings are in the question of defense. First of all, see my good friend from Miami here, we need for a long time for collective security NATO and therefore the Americans in this Europe. In a sense of defense, the United States is a European country. That must be made clear. And this proposal from Russia to have a peace zone from Vladivostok to Lisbon is only acceptable if the Americans are part of that. Never make a deal for such a free peace zone without the United States of America. And this, I think, is a very principal point. And we always to explain that this proposal from Stalin to Putin, it was always the same proposal, is not acceptable for us to divide the nice words with that. But we ourselves have to become better, and the 2% will not help us dramatically. Germany has increased its budget for defense in the last 2-3 years considerable, not yet 2%. Mrs. Merkel has put in the election program this year in the election, which is not very popular, which is attacked by the Social Democrats, to aim for the 2%. It's part of her program. But it will not help us. Why? Why we in Europe have no enough cooperation? The European member states spend 230 billion euros per year for defense. That's much more than double so much as Russia spends. We have 1.5 million soldiers. It's more than the United States has. The result is ridiculous, weak. We have armies in the European Union where the overhead costs are 80%. It's a joke. And here we have to come to more cooperation. I do not call for a European army, we are not so far yet. But for more cooperation to have the proper synergy effects. And here in the last 12 months we have achieved more than 12 years before. Brexit was helpful. The Brits had stopped us to do that. We will get now something like a headquarter, which we are not allowed to call as a headquarter, complementary to NATO. But when we have our missions on the Baltics, in the Balkans, our missions in Africa, and the Horn of Africa and all that part, we have to coordinate it in a proper way. We will have the permanent structured cooperation which is foreseen in the Treaty of Lisbon since 2010. Here we come step by step to the question of procurement. In the United States, they have tanks on the basis of 2 types. In Europe, on 30 types. Economically a disaster. And have here the synergy effects. First time is money for that in the budget of the Commission for research in this question. It's a revolution. Have for research, development, and procurement a cooperation which will save a lot of money and make it stronger. If you have in small countries where 80% overhead costs are 2%, you can buy another military band, but it has not a major impact threatening Moscow. Here we need cooperation, much more. We have this German, Danish, Polish unit in Stettin. We have several things all around, but they are not connected. They are not operational. And here we have to do much more, and here we have done certain steps, always within NATO, complementary to NATO, to make that possible. And I think that is one of the questions we have to learn. We spend so much money in foreign aid, much more than the United States of America. But we are a global payer, but not a global player, because we have no military strength. That is the reason when it comes to Syria and the negotiations, the Europeans not really at the table, because we have not a stick. It's the Americans and the Russians, and perhaps Saudis and Iran, but not us, despite we carry the burdens, both by migration and by humanitarian aid. And here we have to become stronger to solve that question, and I think that would be the right message to Russia too. Then we have one problem which we will have really to solve, and it has to do with our system. We have a free economy. We say our companies should make their investments decisions. It has a lot of advantages. But energy is not just an economic tool, it's a political tool. Since the invention of fire, since the beginning of mankind. And President Putin has said in his inaugural speech in 2012, he will use energy as a political weapon. And he does that. And here, I think in most of our member countries, this connection is not understood. That there are certain questions in the economy which has to combine also with political interest. President Obama has stopped China to buy wind energy in somewhere in the Midwest some years ago because of a security argument. Why do we not see our question in energy in such a way? That is the reason that I'm against Nord Stream 2. And I hope the policy of the German government can become clearer after a certain result of the German elections, to say it mildly. And I hope that Brussels will use all its opportunities to stop that because of the legal basis, in my opinion, which is there. We need diversification. We do not need help in American resolutions on sanctions of European companies. We have to do it ourselves. If it's American sanctions against Russia, which are the tool to sell LNG to Europe, as the main motive of that, it has a certain lack of credibility, I must say. And, but we have to stop that. Nord Stream 1 is not fully used until now. Why build Nord Stream 2? And you cannot say the Ukrainians steal it, as they did in the past. They have reorganized their gas business with Naftogaz and so on. That argument is not valid anymore. And so weaken Ukraine is not an acceptable argument. We run against our own sanction when we build Nord Stream 2. And here we have to become strong and have to come to back to that. I think that is the very important question where we have to cooperate. We should do business with Russia. In the long run, we should have a good relationship to Russia. If you look into the map, it's in a Russian and in a European interest to have a good relationship, politically and economically. It's stupid from both sides. But so long Russia is violating international law, this is not possible, and we should make develop our economic and political and military strength in that way that we can take our part in that. And the European Union is ready to do so, and the member states. Here are now German troops in Lithuania to protect it. There were German airplanes, air fighters flying the borders to Russia in the last years. There is solidarity. It was not easy to explain to our people to send troops here. And we were told by our American friends after the war, never go abroad again with your army. And we believed in that, what the Americans told us. But we have to continue that. And we should come back in the bigger debate on that, what is written in the Treaty of Lisbon. There's a solidarity clause, quite similar to Article 5 in the NATO. We do not discuss it. And let's use this as my last sentence. The European Union will have only a long-term political future if every member country has the feeling of the same quality of security as any other member country of the European Union. That is the key question, that this solidarity must have a credible background and believed by the people of the European Union. And in this context, we should go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elmar, for your clear picture of our defense matters which you are presented now. And of course, I very much support common procurement policy. I know this is a just vision because I do remember when we tried to procure some military equipment with our closest friends, Baltic states, and we still didn't reach any good results. I think we should have more wider horizon on this policy. Maybe it will help us. And of course, I very much support your idea that EU defense policy must be complementary to NATO. I think this is an essence. And the last one, we will do our utmost to help Brussels to bury Nord Stream 2. This is, we could assure you. And now I would like to introduce my party fellow and former party leader, Andrius Kubilius, who is 2 times Prime Minister of the Republic of Lithuania. Currently, he is a member of parliament and also a member of international advisors team or board to Ukrainian President Pyotr Poroshenko. And I would like to say, in my opinion, this gentleman, politician, currently presented the most developed and solid plan to help Ukraine overcome its internal and external challenges. New Marshall Plan for Ukraine. And we will be happy to hear more, Andrius, about the content of this plan, and also how this plan was evaluated and, I would say, and received in European capitals and Washington. Thank you, please.
Well, thanks, Audronius. Really, it's a pleasure and honor to be part of this panel in between of good friends and fighters for the same goals. Really, we have some kind of, I would say, historical conference, thanks to Žygis and President Adamkus, in historical place, on historical date. You know, when we're sitting here in this auditorium, you cannot go, you know, without history. And especially when in Lithuania we speak about Ukraine, of course, everybody remembers immediately the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. My university, this university, is, you know, older than 400 years old. I think that a lot of, you know, elite, political elite in the history were educated here, not only political elite, cultural elite, you know. We can remember that Adam Mickiewicz was studying here, Taras Shevchenko also was studying here in art school. So everything is here, you know, history is here. And tomorrow is a very important day for us, you know, commemoration of Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact and so on and so on. But that's why I will try to speak a little bit what history teaches us. Quite soon, at the end of October or beginning of November, everybody in the world will not celebrate. One country maybe will celebrate, but we shall commemorate 100 years anniversary of Bolshevik Revolution. And still, we need to understand how much that revolution is still influencing everything what is happening not only in our region, but in a much broader sense, in Europe, globally. So, and we are still suffering because of that revolution. And, you know, if you look back into history again, we can say that here were two major historical events after that October Revolution, which are showing, at least to me, that we can be effective in tackling the challenges which are coming from that revolution. One was we celebrated in our parliament quite recently 70 years anniversary of George Marshall speech in Harvard University, which was the beginning of Marshall Plan. And the Marshall Plan, we remember very well why Marshall Plan was established back in 1947. Because George Marshall, Truman, President Truman, all the political elite in the United States of America at that time, they understood very well what Stalin is going to do in not only in the eastern part of Europe, but in the western part of Europe, where economies were in a very bad shape after Second World War. And it was very easy for him to dream about enlargement of his political domination into such countries like France or Italy or Greece or some other countries. And only Marshall Plan, with very real assistance towards recovery of economy of those countries, stopped this Stalin dream to become a reality. Second historical date, which I would remember tomorrow, we shall remember, it's 23rd of August 1991. At that time I was young executive secretary of Zionist movement, and I was responsible for Lenin Monument to be removed from our main square. And here are people really like Professor Landsbergis, Emanuelis Zingeris, Rasa Juknevičienė, Mr. Czesław Kinchits, and so on, who were brave enough before that to declare Lithuanian independence. We were young boys who were brave to remove Lenin monument. That was the beginning of our change. We were successful. We became a successful country because another Western community plan was, from the very beginning, implemented in our region. It was enlargement of EU. That was made us a successful country. That was keeping us on track after we removed Lenin monument. Maybe removal of Lenin monument was easy part of the job. But to become a successful country, that was much more difficult, but because of membership perspective in EU and NATO, we were successful. So now, really, I think that we need to talk, when we are talking about Ukraine, of course, and that was done very well by Elmar Brok, we need to talk not only about Ukraine, we need to talk about Russia. Because Russia, after Lenin Bolshevik Revolution, is still the same. We have Putin like a successor of, Lenin and Stalin. And still in Europe, we do not have very clear understanding and very clear answer. So what to do? Europe was very successful after the Second World War to resolve a big challenge of what to do with permanent conflicts in between of Germany and France. So establishment of EU, consolidation of EU, that was a very, very powerful instrument. But what to do with Russia, which is still suffering, consequences of Lenin revolution, that is very big question. And in Russia always they have very simple two questions which are coming from Lenin time. Who is guilty and what to do? Usually we are stopping with the first question, who is guilty, so we can answer that Lenin is still guilty. But what to do is much more important question. And here I would say what Elmar Brok said. Ukraine, success of Ukraine, is the only one instrument, effective instrument, which the Western community has in its hands, not only to assist Ukraine, like assistance individually to Ukraine, but the only one instrument which Western community has in its hands to assist Russia to transform itself into a more normal country, and to say farewell to, Lenin influence is still so powerful in Russia. So, but we need to understand from that point of view how Putin is afraid of success of Ukraine. And what is Putin's strategy from that point of view? Putin's strategy is very simple. Not to allow Ukraine to become a successful country. Because example of success of Ukraine can be very dangerous to his regime. So Putin has very simple understanding how he can achieve his goal. Well, Maya Sandu was speaking here in a very powerful way about what had happened in Moldova. We call it, Dodonization of post-Soviet countries. It's very easy to achieve. The satisfaction of the people in difficult economical situation very easily brings some populists or pro-Russian guys into political leadership of the countries. And that is what Putin is expecting, that it will happen in Ukraine. And so when we are talking about how to assist Ukraine, I would say that Manuelis Audronius said at the very beginning that javelins are needed, not only 10 principles of Helsinki are needed for Ukraine. Of course, javelins are very much needed, sanctions are very much needed, but investment, euros and dollars, are also very much important as an instrument of assistance towards Ukraine. Why Marshall Plan was successful? Because it allowed to reestablish, to recover economies in Western European countries back in 1947, 1948, and that allowed to diminish local communist influences in those countries. And Stalin lost the battle for domination in Western Europe. The same is very much needed for Ukraine. Why we were successful and why we did not need some kind of Marshall Plan for Baltic states? Because we got membership perspective. We understand that to speak about membership perspective of Ukraine for time being is a little bit unrealistic. It will take time. Europe is not ready and Ukraine is not ready also. But what is very much needed is, of course, what we are saying, so-called Marshall Plan, something equal to Marshall Plan to Ukraine. So we started to elaborate on those ideas in our parliament. We prepared some documents, approved. We were quite surprised that with those ideas when we came into Congress of European People's Party in Malta, with a resolution on that there is a need of such an assistance towards Ukraine. A resolution was approved. It created high expectations back in Ukraine. So we understood that we need to move forward. What we did, we started to go around big capitals of Western community, together with Ukrainians, with members of Ukrainian Rada, trying to build some kind of more consolidated pro-Ukrainian coalition for implementation of such a plan. And I am quite positively surprised that we were getting, both in Washington, D.C., in Berlin, in Brussels, in London, we were getting quite a lot of understanding. So, and now we are moving forward, looking for precise technical arrangements and mechanisms and from where money can come. We are looking towards some kind of European instruments like European External Investment Plan and so on. But that is what I would conclude, that this is, from my point of view, assistance towards recovery of our Ukrainian economy. Ukraine is a rich country, but unfortunately the economy is still in a very, very bad situation. Assistance towards recovery of Ukrainian economy should be considered among ourselves as one of the main priorities from the Western community side, how we can not allow Putin to win with his strategy in Ukraine.
I think, Andrews, that we should do more with the help of our friends to convincing EU commissioners, European Parliament and major factions to pay serious attention to these proposals in the next financial perspective of EU. And here we count on, of course, our fellow European parliamentarians, you, Elmar, and some of us who understand the need of Ukraine for this new Marshall Plan.
Can I have one sentence?
Please, please.
I made also the mistake in my speech. In my opinion, when I speak about Ukraine in that sense, I mean also automatically Moldova and Georgia. Not to forget these other two countries.
Correction is accepted. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Sergei Kapanadze. He is a Vice Speaker of the Parliament of Georgia, a member of a Movement for Liberty European Georgia, a party which is formed from the former member of UNM and is now a key opposition pro-Western force in Georgia. Mr. Kapanadze, he's a practitioner who came from the academia. He served as the Dean of the School of Governance at Caucasus University and the director of a multi-profile think tank, GRASS. Mr. Kapanadze, please, floor is yours.
Thank you. It's all right. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here at this conference and to be able to discuss the important issues that our countries face. And indeed, I think many of the challenges are common and are shared by our countries. The days that we are commemorating in the next few days about the victims of Stalinism, that is certainly one thing that we all share, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Moldova. There is no doubt about this shared past, about how many lives were lost because of the, I would say, crazy ideas that were developed during the communism, which led to Holodomor in Ukraine, which led to the decapitation of the Georgia's political elite, in the 1921, 1937, and this is something that we all understand. But we also share the present. Our countries share the present challenges. Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, they are, even though they are in a, one would say they have different political situations, they have different political challenges ahead of them, I would still say that there are a lot of commonalities that these countries have. And I'm going to start with the positive things. You know, we are now in the very robust stage of Europeanization. The reform agenda that Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine face today is incomparable to any other stage in the previous years. And that is because of the European Union. That is because of the association agreements. That is because of the DCFTAs and because of the visa liberalization process. You know, in our parliament, we ahead of us have about 300 directives and regulations that we have to implement in the next 3 years. And that is a huge challenge, which is very hard to do, but that is something, that the obligation we have taken upon, and the same is true for the Ukrainian parliament, the same is true for the Moldovan parliament. Another thing we share is that in these countries we have a very high support for the European integration in the population. And while the numbers might vary in our countries, still one could make an argument that the pro-European minded population overwhelms, it's bigger than the rest. Another thing we share, also on the positive sides, is that these countries have all gone through a certain kind of democratization in the recent years. Whether this was the popular revolution and the rise of the people to overthrow the corrupt and the authoritarian governments, or whether this was the peaceful transfer of power as it happened in Georgia in 2012 when the government lost and handed over to the opposition. But this is on the positive note. On the negative note, we also share a lot of, I would say, the negative trends, the negative aspects, which are the challenges for our democracy. One thing that has to be mentioned here is the issue with the setback of the formal governance. In other words, the rise of the oligarchs or the rise of the informal governance practices in our countries, where it's not always understandable who actually runs the country, whether it's the officially elected government or whether these are the people behind them. And I think this is something true for all three countries, in different degrees obviously, but it's certainly true for my country. And that leads to a very big problem, which is the problem of accountability, where the government does not always feel accountable towards the people, but feels accountable towards their sponsors, towards those who are behind them. The other thing we share, and that I think is probably the most, or I would say the biggest problem for all of us, is the ongoing Russian occupation. And it was mentioned here in the previous panel how the problems in Moldova, in Transnistria, in Abkhazia, South Ossetia, in Donbass, in Crimea are sometimes called different names. Whereas in reality, that is one big problem, the problem of Russia indeed. It was President Yushchenko who said this. Indeed, this is the Georgia-Russia problem, it is the Ukraine-Russia problem, and it is the Moldova-Russia problem. However, these problems and these conflicts are not dealt in the same way. If you only take a look at the different conflict negotiation formats that are in place in these three countries, they are completely different. In Moldova, you have a certain format. In the case of Ukraine, you have another format at the relatively high-level discussions. In Georgia, you have a completely different format. You don't even have the same actors involved in the conflict resolution. If you look at the Nagorno-Karabakh, for instance, you have no European Union in that format at all. So while we, in these kind of panels, we speak about the fact that it is Russia who deals with these problems, it's the Russia problem, not always the response to that is adequate because there are different approaches towards these conflicts. Now, this is all that we share in the past, what we share in the present, but I think the big question that we need to be asking is, what to do next and how to move forward and how to have a common future. And I think I would be rather skeptical at this stage, to be very frank with you, because I don't think that there is a common vision for our future among the European capitals. There is in a number of politicians, a number of capitals, a number of diplomats, they think about different solutions for concrete problems, but not really the grand strategy or the grand vision for this region. the previous speakers here were talking about how fundamental the transformation for the Baltic states was in the 1990s, and they said that the reason why that happened was the European integration. Now, I think what we are missing in our case is the grand strategy or the grand vision what to do with this remnants, I would say, of the Eastern Partnership. Why remnants? Because Eastern Partnership has served its goals. It has put forward the association agreement, it has put forward the DCFTA, has put forward the visa liberalization. Yes, there is the program of the comprehensive institutional building, but this is now at the stage of implementation, and this does not move us forward any longer. Yes, there are things to do, there are things to implement, but this is not part of the grand strategy. So I'm skeptical that only on the, I would say, on the hangover of the Eastern Partnership, these countries can move longer and can move forward for a long time without having a bigger promise ahead. So I think what is needed is a strategy for these countries, a strategy similar to whether you call it the accession partnership or the pre-accession partnership, or whether you want to call it the Marshall Plan, whatever you call it, but something that puts forward the plan for the future development of these countries. In other words, when a question is asked, what is next after the association agreement, that the answer to this question is not, now you have to implement. Because the answer you have to implement is like telling a bicycle rider, now you have to stop and balance. Because you have to move forward. And moving forward means, having implementation would not only be moving forward, it would be something else ahead. So you move towards that particular goal. And the second point here, I think, is having a very, I would say, unified approach towards Russia in terms of conflict resolution. Because when we talk about the sanctions towards Ukraine, towards Russia because of the Ukrainian crisis, we do not talk about the similar sanctions extending to Russia because of what they are doing in Abkhazia or in South Ossetia, or what they are doing in Transnistria. When we're talking about the conflict resolution in Donbass and in Crimea, and about the high-level discussions between Moscow and the European powers, we're not talking about the high-level discussions on the Georgia issues or on the Transnistria issues. So in other words, you have all these different conflicts in all of which Russia is involved to a different degree, but when there is a high-level discussions with Moscow, it's hardly a same basket that is being discussed. Either one thing is discussed or the other thing is discussed, and that gives a very serious upper hand to Moscow, where they can control the intensity of these conflicts. For instance, in my country, right now you do not have a hot war, you do not have a bloodshed, as we used to have in 2008. However, we have the creeping annexation, where the barbed wire and the so-called border, hard border, is moving forward deeper into Georgian territory. And this issue is not at the highest level of discussions between the Western partners and Moscow. And I think that is a big problem. So together with the grand strategy, I think having a grand strategy how to deal with these conflicts as a similar conflict, I think it's essential. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kapanadze, for your views on how Georgia and other countries who signed the association agreement with you should proceed further. I saw that Elmar is a little bit shaking his head, but it shows that we have different opinions on that. Here I must say that I support, how to say, more Mr. Kapanadze for a stronger move of Georgia and other countries towards EU. Now I would like to introduce our friend from the European North, Mr. Michael Tetschner. He's a spokesperson for Hoire, our sister center-right party. Mr. Tetschner, he was participating in local politics in Oslo back in the 90s, later had a break and worked as a lawyer. Got back to the politics in 2006, and since 2009, a member of the Parliament of Norway. Mr. Tetschner, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be here and address you. I would like to begin with some history, because the first time I visited this country and this particular city, I had to apply for a visa through the Soviet embassy in Oslo.
I see.
And in February 1991, I met with President Landsbergis in his office here in the Parliament, and I noticed that everywhere you could see in his office, in the lobby hall, there were big piles of sandbags because they were planning for the eventuality of a violent attack from the central Soviet government. And our talks took place only a few weeks after the tragic incident and violence against civilians by the TV tower. Why should I meet President Landsbergis? I was at that time the head of Oslo City. That was because the official Norwegian foreign policy did not dare to recognize Lithuania. I think I recall that Iceland took a more bold approach and was the first country to recognize the Free Republic of Lithuania. To my excuse, I can say that Iceland is more distant from Russia. Norway share 160 kilometers with border with Russia. So that reminds us that foreign policy also is a matter of reality. But it was not our finest hour, and I have many times reflected on the fact that we did not be loyal to our values at that time. After the war, we in the West more or less ignored the existence of the besieged peoples just across the Baltic Sea. Although the various Norwegian government never recognized the Soviet occupation of the Baltic states formally, we learned to live with it as a fact in the everyday life. And some said also, regarding to the Cold War dispute with the Warsaw Pact and Soviet, the slogan was peaceful coexistence between two political systems. Even some parts of the political left in my country emphasized the system of planning economy, no competition, non-profit, state-driven enterprises, and the happiness of the people to work for the state and the collective, and not for the family and own goals. The West accepted, by their passive approach, that Stalin could keep his prey, the prey he got after the infamous conspiration with Hitler in 1939. Today, I hope that we can say that we can rely on the slogan coexistence, peaceful coexistence between the two systems, because it is based on the peaceful coexistence between evil and good. There can be peace, but it cannot be secure at the same time. I must also say, being here in Vilnius, that we are impressed of the tremendous achievements the Baltic states and this country has made during the 26 last years. During that time, the Nordic countries has been aware that the security of the Baltic states and the former Soviet influence sphere cannot be isolated from the security of the Nordic countries themselves. I'm glad that we are taking part in the enhanced forward presence in the NATO. We have Norwegian boots on the ground here. I'm proud to say that. Winning the Cold War gives us a strong obligation to win the peace together. The Nordic countries take great interest in the peaceful and prosperous development of the Baltics and Ukraine, of course also Georgia and Moldova. In the everyday life, this means, to be concrete, open our borders for trade and investments, working for energy independence, combat corruption, resist all attempts to intimidation and undue influence on aiming to disturb our democracies and to disturb our free elections. In this time, I also like to emphasize in our largest picture that Europe must take a greater responsibility for its own security. But my view, and I know also that's the perspective of Valmark. We are working together in the Nordic Council with matters like this. We also emphasize that we must maintain strong connection to the transatlantic alliance, regardless of various administrations in the White House. Thank you very much.
For you, Mr. Techner, for your presentation. And now our last panelist, Mr. Boris Tarasyuk, Deputy Chairman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Mr. Boris, he's also a two-time Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Boris is a strong supporter of European integration of Ukraine. He's also decorated by the highest state award of Lithuania due to his positive relations between the states during his tenure as a Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Tarasyuk, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I understand that you, as a moderator, Mr. Minister, you are under the high pressure of time. And to be short, I may say and repeat your words that Ukraine needs not the recollection of principles, but Ukraine needs lethal defensive weapons, in particular javelins. So this is the short answer.
Good.
But I would not be right if I would not say, a few words about the reason we have got together here in this hall, University Hall. First of all, this is the inaugural Valdas Adamkus conference. And this is, to my mind, going to be a great event in the future for the years to come. Valdas Adamkus deserves a great appreciation, not only from his countrymen, but from the regions. We in Ukraine do value greatly your role, Mr. President, in finding the political solution during the serious internal crisis in Ukraine during the Orange Revolution. And you were among the few statesmen, together with together with Solana, together with Kwasniewski, and the representative of the Dutch presidency at that time of in the European Union, and you successfully implemented the mission as a regional leader, helping Ukraine to avoid a further aggravation of the situation, political situation. As a result, the political settlement was found. And that was thanks to you, Mr. President. We value greatly your years-long messages in Europe and in the world that Ukraine needs Europe equally as Europe needs Ukraine. So these are your words, Mr. President, let me remind you. We in Ukraine cherish greatly the support and the activity of our Lithuanian friends. Well, let me remind you about this famous Marshall Plan prepared by Mr. Kubilius and his colleagues in Lithuania and the Lithuanian Parliament decision. So let's hope that out of the EPP Congress there will be a practical decision supported by the European Parliament and the whole of the European Union. We greatly cherish the support of our Lithuanian friends in the European Parliament, and this is your countryman, Petras Auštrevičius, who forged a group of, a great group of members of the European Parliament in support of Ukraine, which is called Friends of Ukraine in the European Parliament. We cherish greatly this activity of our Lithuanian friends. But to come back to the subject matter of this panel that is on Ukraine, let me say a few words that Ukraine happened to be the target of a new imperialist aggressive policy of Russia. This is not only the matter of Ukraine, this is a matter of global peace and order, this is a matter of international law, and this is a matter of a new aggressor state which emerged in our neighborhood. So Ukraine happened to be the main target because without Ukraine, Russia cannot restore its empire. So this is a key to the restoration of empire state of Russia. That's why we in Ukraine have responded for this 3.5 years war with Russia in a very resolute manner, and this was done not to please anybody, but this was done by Ukrainian people to defend our country, to defend the freedom not only of Ukraine, territorial integrity and sovereignty, but to defend the freedom and values of the whole of Europe. We are not asking to be pleased by anybody, but let me remind you that in the course of these 3.5 years of war with Russia, the third largest military power in the world, we not only have stopped the aggressor not to implement their plans to go through the south of Ukraine to the borders of NATO and the European Union, we have suffered immense human losses. More than 10,000 people have been died and killed, and 3/4 of them civilians. 20% of our economy has been lost. We are allocating 5% of our GDP for the defense. Well, this is against talking about 2%. We are spending 5%. We have 1.5 million internally displaced persons, and only our country we have to deal with these problems. But at the same time, let me say a few words. Were there any mistakes done by Ukraine, by our friends abroad? Yes, there were mistakes. I think that it was a mistake to agree on this Minsk II arrangements. Some people are referring to this as agreements. So as an international lawyer, I can say that this is not an agreement at all. So if some people are saying about the Budapest Memorandum on National Security assurances to Ukraine, with regard to Ukraine to get rid of the third largest military nuclear potential in the world. So I would say that this was a real document, although not having a legal status. But at the same time, I would like to say that in the current world, the political commitments given in the highest political level means a lot. So, and in this regard, I would like to say our disillusionment with the fact that neither the United States nor the United Kingdom implemented their commitments according to the Budapest Memorandum. Second thing, it seemed to me that the Russian aggression against Ukraine was a shock for the outside world. It was a shock for Washington, it was a shock for many European capitals, as a result of which the whole West, led by the United States, was for 2 years in a state of embarrassment and puzzlement, not knowing what to do. So, and only after 2 years, last year in Warsaw summit, NATO summit, the decision, correct decisions, adequate decisions were taken. But for 2 years, nobody did anything. And this was because of the previous US administration lost the global leadership. And as a result of this loss of global leadership, Putin did whatever he wanted to. So we shouldn't allow this to happen. We do rely on our forces, but at the same time, we do hope that the new US administration will deblock the delivery of lethal weapons to Ukraine to help us to defend ourselves. We are not asking you to fight for ourselves. We are asking you to help to defend ourselves, and thus defending our common values and principles. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Boris, for such a convincing and passionate speech. And first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to all panelists who shared many valuable insights. And before I'll give floor to my colleague, Mr. Žygis Povilonis, for concluding remarks, let me invite Mr. Emanuelis Zingeris. I would call him walking and talking monument of Lithuanian modern foreign policy, to share some thoughts. Emanuelis, please.
Hello for everyone. I'm sorry that we should share the music of these fantastic doors. I would like to say that today we are here on an unusual occasion. Žygis Povilonis, first of all, President Valdas Adamkus, collected us here to make a summary. 100 years before, next year will be 100 years before Finland, Poland, Baltic states restarted their independence in 1917, 1918. So 100 years, dear friends, 100 years when we say goodbye to October Revolution and we did not accept the Bolshevik values. 100 years we should celebrate in Geneva in the building of League of Nations when 5 countries were saying goodbye to the new, renewed, not Tsarist empire, but absolutely new evil empire who make an echo in Cuba and make an echo in Angola and try to destroy our system of values of humankind. So for next year, we should, during the next year, we should remember that some countries who were members of League of Nations, for 2 years, Ukraine, Georgia, and others in 2 years stopped and ceased to exist. For this is a lesson from 1917, 1918, who become a lesson for countries who were next to the United States, like Cubans, this lesson of the story should be learned from our side. It's not, we are not put to the jail of history, but if, for example, resisting to the behaviors of the old world, we will not put on our agenda during our, Boris, you should remember 2014, Lithuania chose European Union neighborhood for their leadership in the European Union and invited you, Boris, Mr. Vitaly Klitschko and Chairman of European Affairs Committee, Mr. Poroshenko, 2014. In parallel to President Yanukovych. 13, yes. To say yes in front of Yanukovych no to European Union Association Agreement. It was done by you, by the brave members of parliament from Kiev, in front, facing no from Mr. Yanukovych, who make calls every 20 minutes to President Putin. So we have now, we should learn the lessons. And the lesson was President Valdas Adamkus' behaviors together with late President Kaczynski in Bucharest, trying to convince NATO members, 2008, to open the doors for Ukraine and Georgia, in case telling to the people that it will be much worse conditions in the future if NATO will not open the doors for mentioned countries. And leadership of the world not listen to their advice. And after that was immediately intervention from Russia against Georgia, and after that, after a few years, against Ukraine. So our great experience in a country, thank you for our Norwegian friend mentioned our achievements, was based on our understandings in the Baltic, dear friends, that Soviet communist rule here is temporary. We never accepted our blood infusion with the communist ideologies from 1917, 1918. You can imagine here in this ancient university, after in the 50s, 60s, read posters with inscription about communism. It was nonsense in the Baltic countries. So in this case, we rejected every day of our life until 90s, and Mr. Landsbergis make everything in the 89 to remember in Moscow to bring out that Molotov Pact exists. Well, they told us that pact not exist at all. That was the idea of Russia. And Mr. Landsbergis, you brought the pact together with your Russian democratic friends who now not exist at all. They're mostly eliminated from Moscow. The pact, that the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact exists, and that was evil acts between, in 1939, between Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. In this case, I would like to say to you all, thank you so much from our teams here in the 90s who work so much to make our democratic revolution successful. And we absolutely hope that our success of the Baltics will be the success of Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova. Thank you.
And now I ask my colleague, parliamentarian Žygis Pavilionis, for concluding remarks.
Well, I will make it in English because those are concluding. So first of all, sincere thanks for everyone who came. President Adamkus, President Landsbergis, President Yushchenko, all other presidents and honorable leaders, Lincoln, our dear brothers and sisters from Nordic countries, Germany, Poland, everyone who shared the dream of Europe whole and free. Thank you so much for coming, and thanks for all the organizers who contributed so much for our event, IRI, McCain Institute, Eastern Europe Center, Konrad Stiftung, who is hiding somewhere, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is also hiding somewhere, but they supported us so much. And let me make some operational remarks that we, like organizers, will be using to build a next event exactly in 1 year. So, Adamkus Regional Leadership Conference will become an annual event. The challenge of freedom and free societies we face today keeps growing.
So we need to gather together every year to renew our bonds and rehash our plans. We will meet again every year on the eve of Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, August 22, so that we do not forget what kind of challenge we're working against and what is for we're working today. Our enemy is not external only. Our own complacency is our enemy, our own consumerism is our enemy, and so is nepotism and corruption. We will do our best to consolidate reform process in Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova. And of course, we will use to the maximum association agreements like Mr. Brock told us. And of course, we will use to the maximum new and innovative ideas like Marshall Plan put forward by Andrius Kubilius. Well, we heard very well what Lincoln said, America is back. And security is indivisible, another phrase of Kurt Volker. So we will work hard to keep our transatlantic community strong, and we will try to contain Russia as much as we can. And we will, of course, try to increase our defense spending. That was actually stressed by a lot of other participants. We will try to boost our democracy support in the region. We will try to join different joint actions against Russian propaganda. We will try to be as active as possible in LNG revolution. We will try to fight geopolitical Kremlin energy projects like Nord Stream, thank you Elmer, and Astravo, or actually Kremlin nuclear power plant built in Belarus. And we will try hard to provide defensive or lethal assistance to Ukrainian brothers and sisters. And to make it, well, kind of Reagan type, we will try to fight and we will try to tear down the wall Putin created all over in Europe's east in order to complete the European project, the Europe whole and free. And we will try to go larger and larger every year by drawing in outstanding visionaries from the region, Europe, and across the Atlantic, but also young people who will take the baton from us soon. I do hope that new Trump administration, the McCain Institute, the IRI leadership will use the venue to consolidate character-driven leadership in the region. And I have a little agreement from Kurt Volker that our common goal is with the McCain Institute, the International Republican Institute, and other interested partners to create Valdas Adamkus and John McCain Leadership Academy for the young and bright. We will reach out to politicians, academic researchers, young activists, but also economists, startups, gurus, energy executives, and more, because our cause is comprehensive, and so is our vision. Some of them will provide political vision, some extensive academic experience, while others will make the executive knowledge of youthly energy and determination available. We can prevail, and we will. Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you to all of you who sat and listened passionately our speeches and our reports. And once again, thank you, dear guests. And see you all after 1 year, exactly, in the same places. Thank you.